truth seeker and believer in people power. And Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not
August 2020, and thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation right here on Spice FM. Nduh Okoh, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic.
How do you do?
I do.
You do, Jerry.
I did, Jerry.
Bas, very good. Yeah, Kenya ni mzuri.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Kenya is a good country.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
What makes you say this?
Well, you know,
Okay.
it's just like when you look at your children, you just say your children are cute. Regardless of what you are looking at.
So now you've looked at Kenya, and regardless of what you've seen, Kenya is a good country.
Regardless of what you're looking at, you will always say that your children are the most beautiful. All right? And that you have the best parents.
Okay.
So, Kenya is a good country.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
City Muga,
Good morning, Eric.
how you doing?
Well, thank you.
How was the weekend, brother?
Quiet. My weekends are quiet,
Quiet means you don't talk, or quiet means there's no one talking?
meaning there is minimum activity other than what is actually absolutely necessary.
Ah.
As in,
So it's not quiet in the sense of noise, it's quiet in the sense of activity.
yes, it is, yes.
Movement.
Tranquil,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, mine was too tranquil. Quiet and peaceful. Yeah.
I actually purpose it to be that way because I find that by the time you get to Friday, one is usually fairly exhausted.
Yeah.
So there's need to recharge.
And recharge happens by you taking the chill pill.
Yes,
the
yes,
weekends.
yes. Taking a good dose of it. And then, yes, because the weekend isn't really long. It's just 2 days. And it's not really 2 days because Saturday, there's usually a hangover from a Friday. There's Friday carries on to Saturday, at least a bit of the Saturday in terms of activity. So you probably just, the tranquil is half of that Saturday.
It's half of the Saturday.
Yes. Then come Sunday, by the time it's getting to early evening, you're already on Monday mode. You already begin to think of Monday. So,
Some sense of depression.
well, some sense of trepidation.
Why is it that Mondays cause people to feel that way?
It's the change. You see, it tells me that the idea of having your time to yourself without any prearranged or predetermined activity, okay, like work, is something that we enjoy and we like.
Yeah.
We normally call it doing nothing. The truth is, it's not that we're not doing anything. It's just that you have the option.
Yeah.
And there is no pressure to do anything other than even just sitting around lounging and should we say
It will not be audited. It doesn't count. Whatever
it doesn't
you do,
matter.
it's yours.
Yes, it's yours. Now, when you change that and you now want to go back into the daily routine, that daily routine is something that most people endure.
Yeah.
It's something you have to endure.
You feel like it is just too much. Too much.
Yes,
Too much.
because with just you see the detail and the I wouldn't call it the rigor, but just the monotony of repetition of everyday work, that in itself isn't a problem, but what comes with it.
Yeah.
And that's why Friday for a very long time in this country was a major day. And we even gave it a nickname.
Frahid day.
Yes. So,
It's a day to take a break.
I actually like Mondays. No, let me be honest. I've taught myself to like Mondays. Yes.
You shall repeat it for as long as you want to repeat it so that it becomes the reality.
Yes. So I actually even look forward to Mondays. It doesn't cause me stress. I look forward to it, and when I wake up, I am actually in a good mood. Yes.
That's a good thing.
It is.
It's accepting where you are. Just accept Accept your fate. Accept your fate. On this show today, we'll be discussing a number of things. We want to look at what's happening. Where are the COVID billions? Where have they gone? We know that the Senate is investigating this. The Senate Health Committee had invited the management of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority on Friday. The CEO did not turn up. And then we'll be discussing to a member of that committee, the Narok Senator Ledama Olekina. And also we look at what it means to see all this talk about, the KEMSA and the investigations. We saw a statement by the ODM Secretary General over this matter. We saw a statement by the Deputy President over the matter. We have seen statements by the evangelical churches, the Kenya National Union of Nurses. We have seen statements by Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi over the same matter. Musalia, in fact, is calling for a proper commission of inquiry, public inquiry into this. So I think at some point we'll also be looking at, Kenyans. We've got to be wary of when we see all these focus highlighting, spotlighting one institution and ignoring the fact that we know the lords of corruption are elsewhere. But that is something we'll be discussing. Let's begin where we always begin, and this is tracking the COVID-19 numbers in the country and in the world.
All right. Let's look around the world now. 23,583,616 is what we're looking at now globally. 812,513 deaths. And still, we're looking at 16,080,573 recoveries around the world. So always a good thing to look towards. The United States is leaning very quickly towards 6 million deaths with 5,874,146
Deaths.
I'm sorry, cases. Thank you for that.
Got worried there for a minute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kenya now at 32,364 cases with a total number of 548 deaths. And looking at maybe in the coming days, more reagents will be made available in the country so that the testing can be ramped up just a little bit. I mean, there are many things that people are saying. Numbers are going up, numbers are going down. Whatever the case may be, COVID is still here. And we heard that announcement of the World Health Organization that, COVID is likely going to be around for the next 2 years or so. It's going to take 2 years before we're able to, get this under wraps from all indications. But we'll wait and see. South Africa, as we said on Friday, when we looked at South Africa's cases on Friday, they were at 598. Today at 609,773. So an increase of about 10,000 cases. Almost 11,000 cases over the last 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is now the national tally with 13,059 deaths. So Mexico, the country that we've been looking at in terms of high number of cases, still recording quite high, over 3,000 cases every 24 hours, now with 3,948 cases yesterday and 226 deaths. All right. So, the numbers around the world continue to rise. China is coming back to normal with, public places opened. People are going back into life as it was before COVID, still with precaution taken. Caution is being taken, but China more or less across the country and not just in particular cities, but is going back to life as usual, as normal.
And who's reporting
They're
this?
their own. They're not coming from the government. They're not announcing that they're COVID-free, which I thought was interesting. They've not said that we are now COVID-free. What they're doing is that they're still going ahead with the measures. However, many public places have opened, restaurants, sporting activities.
At least in Wuhan. Because the other parts had already reopened for quite a while, right? So it's... Well, when you hear that people in Wuhan are even feeling comfortable enough to get out of their homes, knowing that they were hard hit by this, and knowing that they were the ones who were made to stay indoors for weeks on end, it's an encouraging thing.
I would think so.
Well, it's a perfect example of the positive results that arise from actually adhering to certain norms. That it may be difficult, it may actually really be the last thing you actually want to comply with, but you can see that the end result is actually positive.
Yep.
And more importantly, the number of lives is saved.
Yep. Yep.
That should always be on the balance, in my opinion. Lives that can be saved and lives that must be saved, as opposed to those which will be lost if we don't adhere
We don't adhere.
to certain norms.
I bet like China was locked down. Wuhan, my
Wuhan
good
was
Lord.
Ghost city.
When those people just come out, man, feel for them.
You
For
know,
months, they did not leave their homes.
You know, when one refers to the COVID pandemic as a war, it is correct. Because when you have a fully fledged war, people behave in the same manner. You don't really venture out unless you absolutely have to.
Yep.
You prepare to stay in a place that you consider safe, and for the longest time. And even your behavior changes, everything about you changes. Now, it tells you that having a command economy like China, it clearly has its benefits. Because these lengthy debates about what should happen, when and how, that didn't even arise.
You're telling us to stay indoors. What shall we eat? Stay indoors.
We will look, but you see, it's accompanied by the ability and capacity to take care of the basic,
take care of the people.
basic
Yes.
needs. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, because none of them has come out to say, oh, we died, people died of hunger, or people died for lack of water. All those things are provided, but just stay indoors. Very big. In the country, 32,364 total number of confirmed cases so far, with the yesterday's cases, new confirmed cases, 246, with 4,179 samples tested. And I think, our death is at 548. And there's a story here on the Standard that talks about the puzzle of asthma patients' complex resistance to the virus. So asthma also attacks the respiratory system, but the death out of people who are asthmatic who are succumbing to COVID is being reported as being at 2%. Remember, the others are at 36%, the hypertension and diabetes. So these are 2%, so there's some research that's claiming that steroids could be the reason why less asthmatic individuals are getting severe COVID-19.
Oh, yeah?
You know, there's something else that I was listening to over the BBC. It's something that has been actually in the public domain for some time, but I heard it today in the BBC. It's something that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration Agency in America, does from time to time. When some finding with regards to research on a drug has come about and the safety of that drug outweighs the harm, they license it for emergency purposes, meaning they allow it for emergency purposes. There was the malaria drug that should we say, much talked about, hydroxychloroquine. And then there was remdesivir that was also talked about. Many of these, you see, as a malarial drug, it is understood. Remdesivir was also understood to actually help boost the immune, but specifically for treating COVID patients.
Yeah.
Now, they've come up with something that is actually 100 years old in terms of understanding. It's actually called plasma, the liquid part of your blood. And there's something called convalescent plasma treatment, where they actually harvest the plasma, they separate it, and what they separate actually is the antibodies that are produced within it, and that's what they use to actually treat. I'm simplifying this whole process completely.
Completely.
Yes. To treat COVID patients. And Mayo Clinic had been doing, and was undergoing, was testing a cohort of 35 patients. Now, out of the 35, 20,000 of them turned out to have very, very
20,000 out of 35,000. Okay.
I mentioned 35, and then I forgot the 1,000, didn't I? All right, 35,000. All right. And given that 20,000 of these numbers actually showed very positive results, This, among others, is what led the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to say, look, in emergency cases, you can use it. It doesn't mean they have licensed it. It just means that because you have a problem and you have an emergency situation, because that's what COVID is, should the need arise for you to look for additional treatment, you can use this, even as we are looking into understanding more about it. Now, this is something we're going to find more and more happening, because when you have a pandemic and you have as many trials as we have, the moment a trial produces results that are considered positive and the good clearly outweighs the possible harm, then in emergency, remember, there are other things that haven't been done. In the Mayo Clinic, there was no placebo testing. They sort of, yes. They haven't gotten there. The sort of research findings and stages that you're supposed to go through before FDA can say, okay, now we can license it, that didn't happen. But it means that the fight against COVID is actually still on and is going strong. Anytime something comes up and it appears that it is positive and can work, it's being allowed. But again, as I said, emergency. Circumstances.
Is there a likelihood that this emergency can now get to a point where it's licensed?
Yes, it can.
If it proves that, we looked at it and it actually worked over and over.
Oh, there are very, very many drugs that have actually been in that particular position before. Yes. It's just that the warning signs not to use it except in an emergency are great, but people tend to ignore that. People tend to read or hear or understand when you say emergency, it works.
Yeah.
It does.
And that's not what they're saying. They're saying it has been seen to work.
But now we're in an emergency, so that's basically saying use it.
You're being told to use it, but with care.
Okay.
Yes.
18 minutes after 6 o'clock, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's see how our skies are looking like this morning. Some parts of Nairobi are raining, other parts are not raining. What else is happening in other parts of the country and other parts of the world? Let's find out. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
We're looking at mostly cloudy conditions this morning in Nairobi at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 13. In some parts of the city, the rain has already started coming down. In Njeri, it's cloudy at 14, highs of 20 and lows of 13, and a chance of a shower later on in the afternoon. Nakuru is partly cloudy this morning at 13. Thunderstorms are forecasted for later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's 13 degrees in Eldoret this morning, highs of 19 and lows of 12 with showers expected later. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 20 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 19, and there's a shower that's predicted for later on. It's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 16 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 15, and it looks like the forecast is thunderstorms for later on in the day. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa at 23 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 22, with rain expected later as well. Partly cloudy conditions will rule the day in Malindi at 24 degrees currently, highs of 28 and lows of 23, and those cloudy conditions will continue. Let's take a look then into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 21 degrees, highs of 25, and lows of 19 with a wet afternoon in store. All right, into Dar es Salaam, where it's partly cloudy at 26 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 21, and a shower is forecasted for the afternoon. It's 8 degrees and mostly sunny conditions predicted for this morning in Johannesburg in South Africa. Sunny conditions to continue throughout the day with highs of 18 and lows of 5. And in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 23. And the rains will continue here as well. There's a thunderstorm warning for yellow in Paris. It's currently mostly sunny conditions at 22. It'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 17. In London, in the UK, it's mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 22 and lows of 16. And finally, for now, in Paris, at 31 degrees, in New York at 31 degrees on Sunday night. It'll go to a high of 33 and lows of 22.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Live stream is up
94
www.spicefm.co.ke as well as on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Spice FM KE. Let's begin with the big proverb.
Today's proverb comes from Ghana. A child can play with its mother's breasts, but not his father's testicles.
It's true.
Why do they have to put those two in comparison? I mean, what really, why?
That is why it's a proverb, to get your mind thinking.
Why? Surely. Okay.
Do's and don'ts.
The do's and don'ts.
Yep.
Any close Swahili translation of this or any close Kenyan translation of this, would love to hear about it. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Just tweet us with anyone that's close to this. A child can play with its mother's breasts, but not its father's testicles.
No.
Okay. The big stories of the day in the big newspapers. Where do you want to start, CT?
Actually, I want to look at the coup in Mali. This has been a story for quite some time. And the world, the international community has ganged up and they are pressing for a speedy return to civilian rule. And there have been meetings and they haven't stopped. There's been more meetings and there's been a gathering of people and they're charting not just a pathway, but a timetable within which civilian rule can actually be arrived at quickly. The issue that actually, for me, is pertinent is not even the coup. It's not even these processes. What is pertinent to me is how it is in the 21st century, matters can get to a point where the military actually feel they need to intervene. We often forget that the military are part and parcel of the country. They live there. And it's not as though whatever is happening they don't know. They do know. And it's not as though they are not participants in certain processes within the country. It is their country after all. But why it is the military seem to think, or it gets to a point where the military feel they must intervene, it's what I consider to be the pertinent issue that I need to look at and consider. Because it's been a while. It's been a bit, as they say, since we heard of such occurrences.
Military doing something.
Yes.
In Africa, especially.
Especially on our beloved continent. But of significance, the leaders are safe and sound.
Those ones, they step down voluntarily and they're fine.
Yes.
Not under house arrest or anything.
Nope, they're not.
And the situation is calm.
The situation is calmer.
Is there any fighting on the streets?
Not that we know of. There was cheering and there was happiness. When the military take over, it would be imprudent for you to do certain things.
You wouldn't want to go anything but cheering and clapping.
Yes, what would be advised is compliance at the earliest possible opportunity. Yes.
Because the same action that they meted upon the individual that they removed could also be meted
But you see, when a story comes out and the the lead says that, a section of the military that was mutinying, then you would imagine that there'd be the other section that has not mutinied, that is going. But this one is not mutiny.
No.
This was it was consensus.
Completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people were, even before news left Kati to Bamako, people were already gathering in Bamako, and they were very happy about
What was gonna happen.
What was going to happen?
You see, what does the happiness indicate to you? It indicates that people seem to be fairly fed up
Yes.
with the leaders that they
Yes.
they had at that time.
Yeah, they needed some leadership
Yes.
to take place, and
Yes.
leadership was not coming from the leadership.
No, it wasn't. Because by the time people are cheering on someone else,
Yeah.
this is a military.
Yeah.
Huh? You have to ask the question, how fed up were they of this government?
Oh, yes. And where were these leaders now who were talking about returning to civilian rule as soon as possible?
Yes.
Where were they
Yes.
when the people of Mali were complaining?
And they didn't start complaining at the election. No. There had been complaints before.
Yep.
It just heightened.
the regional leaders were just observing.
Yes, they were.
And now is when they're saying, oh, we have suspended you from being a member of ECOWAS. Oh,
As though they care.
So they really
then
care, and
you
they
go.
waited for something to be done. And then everybody was speaking from different quarters
Yeah.
here. Tariffs, or rather, sanctions slapped, questions suddenly being asked. And I think the people of Mali are actually right to be able to ask the question, where were you when all of this was happening? And then suddenly an action was taken which you seem to think is draconian or however undemocratic. And then you have a voice to speak up. No.
You know, this toothless blabbering sometimes is actually a bit irritating. Okay? But let me get to the heart of the matter. The disconnect that very many, and I'm focusing, it may be a universal problem, but on this continent, the disconnect that the leaders seem to have with the plight of the citizenry they're supposed to look after is actually amazing. And it's like a deliberate action to blind yourself to the reality of the suffering and the problems that are before you, and problems which you are elected or you're in place to try and help resolve.
Exactly. That's why you're there. That's
Yes.
the thing.
Have you ever heard of a situation where people have sort of like revolted or have complained because they're being treated too well? This treatment is a bit too good. Can you reduce it a little bit?
Except the Israelites when they finally left Egypt, and then they said, you know what, we'd rather be back in the shackles of the Egyptian rulers.
At least
where
they were
we were
eating
getting pumpkin and milk and
desert.
that was the only time.
Scorching sun.
They were free, but now they were in the desert, and they said, no, we'd rather go back to Egypt.
You know, it's a very interesting analogy because essentially they're saying, no, slavery is better.
I think this is better. I mean, what
Suffering under slavery, it's better.
It's better than this.
sitting out here, we don't even know our future. I mean, we're just gonna die. We're falling off one after the other.
And then there's this thing you're keeping up, it's called manna.
Yeah. In fact,
Surely.
this was even before manna came. It's just hungry. You don't know where you're going. You're being told it's
Just
on
keep
this
walking.
side. No. It's you don't even realize that you're turning round and round. Anyway, this is a conversation that we're having this morning. Good morning at 6:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we look at other headlines. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Wherever you are, whether in Malindi or Njeri or Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nairobi or Eldoret, and all the surrounding areas, or wherever you are in the world, watching us on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or www.spicefm.co.ke. We say a very good morning to you and welcome to the show. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. traffic.
Monday morning, let's see what the roads look like. Coming off Mombasa Road, let's start with that. Everybody trying to get into the CBD, or at least use it as a way to get out somewhere else. So it's building up, but not too terrible as what we see right around the Cabanas. But you'll be fine. Thika Road this morning, inbound. We know that the roads have been worked on since Friday, and that continues. So the road opened about 2 hours ago, and we already see the traffic is building. The bridge is being finished tomorrow. The footbridge is being completed tomorrow. However, we're going to see heightened levels of traffic just because of that construction that's taking place. So guys, as you're waking up going to work this morning, realize that you need to have planned earlier to get out a lot quicker. All right, let's look at other parts of the city. Jogger Road, there's some jam there this morning trying to get into the CBD via the City Stadium roundabout. It won't take you too long, though. It won't be too bad. We'll look at other parts for now. Outbound on Thika Road, inbound rather on Thika Road, we see quite a lot. Coming out of Westlands as well into the CBD, we're going to see some heightened levels of traffic. We'll give you more details as we go through. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter and let us know what you see.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
We are looking at
94
the
point-
big headlines this morning on Spice FM. There's a story here on page 2 of The Standard, which is the horror of two boys who were left to die as parents prayed. It's a story of a village in Kitui County called Lundi. Now, in Lundi village, there is a sect of Christian called Kavonokia. The Kavonokia is this sect that does not believe in going to hospital for anything. Now, they were conducting some circumcision, which was young boys who were going to be circumcised by an elderly lady using a razor blade. And they, because they don't do anything about medicine, there's nothing about any pain relief or anesthesia or nothing at all, right? So the boys, unfortunately, two of the boys started bleeding excessively. They were taken to a certain room, and what happens is now the sect members go into serious prayer mode to pray for these particular two boys so they can heal, and it did not happen. So they bled, and they were vomiting, and they deteriorated, and one died at 6 p.m., and the other one died around 10 p.m., and the unfortunate bit is that they are siblings. Their father, who's pictured here, Mutua Kiduka, he says, it is true that we did not take them to hospital because I'm saved. And according to the scripture, we are not allowed to go to hospital. If one falls sick, you invite the church elders to pray, and the sick is healed by faith. God gives and God takes away. It is His will. After all this is when the Moi chief, Paul Musiemi, says they learnt of the matter after the boys had already died, and they went, and the Mwingi East Police boss, Joseph Yakan, confirmed that Kithuka was arrested, and the traditional circumciser was arrested as well. They are being held at Ukasi Police Station, and they'll be arraigned in court today.
Yeah, they killed the boys. I'm sorry.
This particular ritual happens all the time. Everybody in the region knows about it. This particular Kavonokia sect is not in secret. They do their things openly. So the time that you're saying that the chief and the police are coming to arrest the people now and the circumciser now is also raising questions of, were you just waiting until the child died before you took action? Was there a responsibility by the government officials to ensure that you do not have kids being subjected to such dangerous practices?
Were they aware that this particular ceremony was taking place at the time that it was taking place, and then that these two boys were being supposedly prayed for in a room, secluded area somewhere? Were they aware that this was going on at the time at which it was happening? Because then I want to understand, I'm looking at a situation where practically you're watching these two boys dying, and you're still praying, and you're realizing that they're actually not getting better, but you still continue with the prayer. and then you give an excuse later that God gives and God takes away. I have a problem. I have a major problem with that. Then between faith and logic, because the same God who asks you to have faith gave you a brain and asks you to exercise the powers of your brain as well.
It reminds me of a time in the 20th century, somewhere in the later 20th century, when there was a televangelist. There was the beginning of televangelists in Kenya. There's a gentleman, a certain prophet, who also died, and his followers believed that he would resurrect.
Are they still waiting?
No, they got to a point the body started rotting.
Okay.
They realized perhaps
This shall not
the
happen.
resurrection might need to take place after he has been buried. So
I'm sure they came up with an excuse that he's taken up another body.
I am certain they did, but they if it's a question of just energy that was poured into praying for this man to resurrect,
They poured it nicely.
it wasn't.
Where does the state now come in? Okay, so this is about people's individual faiths, right? Right to worship, right to associate, right to believe whatever you want to believe. Where does the state come in this kind of matters? Because you also see these same kind of things happening even in countries like America, where sects go and people are locked up.
Everybody
in some
drinks
place.
poison.
They drink poison. They want to die. It's mass suicide. Where does the state come into this? And how do you separate? Because for me, for instance, it is not about the parents. You guys can do whatever you want. But when you subject children, does the state have a responsibility to protect the children?
Yes, it
Yes.
does. Yes, it does. 100%.
Why don't you take the view that if you decide or you determine that you want to leave this world and you want to commit suicide,
And you don't succeed.
the full wrath,
Of the law.
Of the law
yes,
comes.
and you will be informed quite categorically that your rights don't extend that far. You don't have those rights. It's as simple as that.
So you cannot subject yourself to harm
No.
willingly.
Nope.
Oh, but look at it this way.
In
No.
that case, then even for these guys, the fact that you don't go to hospital, if you fall sick and you know that the government has provided a healthcare facility near you and you don't go to it, then you are liable.
Yes, yeah, but look at it this way. By you not providing a life-saving treatment for those two boys, you basically did the same thing as killing them. That's what you did. You watched them die.
And more importantly, even if the children had survived, the parents clearly indicated that they were not fit for parenthood. Because it is assumed that when you have children, one of the things you want to ensure is that the children stay alive and that they are well.
Yep.
Basic.
Yep.
And if what your efforts achieve is a complete opposite, then you've actually abrogated not just your functions, but your ability.
Your ability.
So you no longer qualify to be a parent to those children.
Because you're a custodian of their lives. You're a custodian of their lives, their health, their shelter, their education, their feeding, their everything, their being alive. And then if you are the one who's standing directly in the way of that, then you might as well have committed the sin. You might as well have taken that razor to their necks.
This is not even standing in the way. It's essentially you're making a decision that caused them harm.
So where is the chief and the police boss in all this? Because, yeah, they've arrested them. These guys will be arraigned in court. They'll be charged with whatever. But the people who should ensure that this does not happen, and these are the security or agencies and the organs of security, where were they?
Well, where did this take? Did this
Where
take
did
place
this
in the
prayer take
privacy of
place?
their home?
Yeah.
Did it take place in a public place?
That's the problem.
Whether in the privacy of your home or not, as long as it's something that you're doing that is considered criminal, because now
but-
they'll be charged with that.
True, but
The
then
chief
we
cannot
don't
say that
know-
he did not know.
Yes, actually, it is correct. They
Yeah,
wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know. How would they
How
know
would you
that
know
they
what's
would-
happening in
they
someone's
finished
house?
the circumcision and then they were going into an inner room to
How
pray.
would you know?
Listen, the job of a chief, I'll paraphrase what the former Interior CS Minister once said, John Mishoki. He said, a cow gives birth. The chief must know that within the same day. A cow gives birth in this village. The chief must know. The chief should know whatever is happening in this area. How did the chief know that the children have died? They died in a home, and this sect usually buries the kids, usually buries people as soon as possible. How do the chief and the police now know that these ones have died? It must have been in public domain.
The question that I'm asking is, the activities of this particular sect, were they in the public domain? The answer is yes. what they did was known, but on this particular occasion, was it known that this is what they were going to do? Because was it a practice that, because I doubt if it's the first time that they did this.
not.
No, for sure. And then
Yes.
these boys began to bleed, right? So they were they? I mean, we can't.
12
see, but
boys.
were they at home?
12 boys underwent this circumcision. That is public.
Yes.
There's absolutely no way that
No, but what I'm
you can
saying
call
is-
yourself a chief.
Sure, but
And you
by
don't
the
know.
yes, they were circumcised, but these two boys started to bleed excessively, right? They were at home by the time this happened.
Yep.
They were at home. So now what I'm asking is that, was the chief then aware that things went south by the time the circumcision was done and then, the bleeding continued?
If he
and then
wasn't
they
aware,
began
he
to
should
pray.
be fired.
And then they began to pray
He should
when
be
they were at
fired.
home.
Yeah. Look, if 12 boys by this Kavalokia sect have been circumcised, and you know that the person who's circumcising them is not even somebody who is trained, and you know the methods which they use to circumcise boys, and you don't even follow up to find out, all right, so what's happening? It tells you something about the chief.
Eric has a point.
That it's possible that these kids could have died and be buried and nobody would have known. And yet the chief is there. What's your job as a chief?
Actually, does it not remind you of the
And
case
in fact, that whole structure starts with a village headman. There's a headman in the village. It goes to the sub chief, to the chief. All those people are there, and they know.
these are the same questions we asked regarding the lady in Naivasha
Yep.
and the 4 children.
Mm.
Yes, same question that we asked. And it is a valid question indeed. They actually must be accountable.
They should answer some questions.
They should.
Really. I mean, that's why you're there.
You know, there are those who would argue, Eric, that if they do their job very well, then essentially we'll be saying that we have ourselves a police state where
Everything is
Everything.
being checked on.
each
Yes.
and
Yeah.
every movement that you make is known. But in any community, usually, it is what happens within the community is actually not a secret. It's a secret to you, who is not part and parcel of that community. But to those who live there, it's not a
known.
secret.
It is known.
It's common knowledge. They may not talk about it, but it's something that they know.
It is known. Coming to 7:15. Before we do that, let's remind you about this portal by the Kenya Ports Authority. It's called Captain Cargo. Now, Captain Cargo is a portal on their website, www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, where you are able to get all the information that you need to understand the services that Kenya Ports Authority offers. Today, what do you want to look at?
Well, okay, so let's look at vessel services and exactly what they do. And this is across board for import and export. And according to Captain Cargo, what you will then be able to have access to by virtue of the fact that you're either importing or exporting. So we're going to look at the process that CK will walk us through today. Shipping agent submits a notification of arrival to KPA in form of a booking request. So this is the process, and we're going to start with just that today. So you have a notification of arrival. This is when your stuff is coming in, and we know that CT had brought in his generators and is now minting some serious money as of last week Saturday. So KPA then gives a booking request, and now that is either booked either for export or import when you want to bring in or take out goods from the country. And so we'll be looking at that today, and in terms of what Captain Cargo has to offer.
All right. So you'll be looking at how a vessel arrives at the port and all the procedures that go around that.
Yes.
Before a vessel arrives, it doesn't just appear. Wewe unaitwa hii ni meli ile imetoka Dubai. No. KPA knows in advance.
Tulikuwa tunapitia tukienda
Tulikuwa
Dar es Salaam.
tunapitia.
We just
Kaona
want to drop
tusimame tu
something.
hapa kidogo tuachie mtu mzigo. Tunaendelea. No way. That's not what happens. You can find all this information on www.kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO, Captain Cargo, the Kenya Ports Authority's information portal. Good morning. It's 7:15.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're looking at the big headlines. Nduh, what do you have?
So, Kilimani has some issues, eh? Recent killing in posh suburb turns focus to gun ownership. The Firearms Licensing Board seeking details of firearms believed to have been used to shoot the victim. It's the same area where we saw in an apartment a couple of weeks ago a lady who had been killed. The same area, in the same apartment years before that, where somebody else had been killed. Apartment block. Last week's killing is one of many incidents which have seen the prestigious Kilimani lose its glory and gain notoriety as a theatre for bloody confrontations. Investigations into the killing of a 28-year-old businessman in Kilimani at the weekend has shifted to the Firearms Licensing Board after reports emerged of the killer weapon's bloody past. This is the latest incident that reignites the puzzle of posh Nairobi residents where luxurious lifestyle and crime appear to reside side by side. Kilimani DCI Chief Fatuma Hadi has now written to the Charles Mukindia-led Firearms Licensing Board seeking details of the firearm believed to have been used to shoot Kevin Omwenga. This is the backdrop of allegations that the area police had earlier recommended the board to withdraw the said firearm after its licensed owner was reportedly involved in a gun drama at, yet again, the B Club. He was later charged with assault and causing bodily harm. So we know that this gentleman was shot over the weekend. We know also that the gentleman who is accused of shooting him has now said that it was an accident and it didn't occur as had been reported. Two men, including businessman Chris Obure, have been arrested in connection with the shooting. Yesterday, the police said that they would be seeking more time from the court to conclude investigations after they recovered a mini Seska firearm with 13 bullets from one of the suspects. Okay.
So why is this story then just making Kilimani appear like it's a hotspot, a bedrock of violence in the city?
Because a number of these cases have happened in Kilimani. That's the reason why. It seems that in the last few months, things that have happened in this area.
It's a vast area. Well, it's not small. It's a vast area, but also the shootings don't happen in public. So we really can't characterize like Kilimani is the place of pleasure and death. Because what comes to mind when I hear that is that avoid Kilimani at all costs. You go there, you are unlikely to come out alive.
No,
Is that what you get when you?
Actually, the way it's been presented, it is precisely that. That Kilimani is a place you're most likely to die by being shot.
Yeah. They're trigger
Death
happy,
by
gun
gunshot
people
is likely to be
walking
your portion
around.
If you're, Wow.
But of significance, you also need to be in an apartment block.
Yeah. Which
People
is
aren't
what
shot walking in Kilimani, it's in apartment blocks. And usually it's by people they know.
Yes.
Because these stories, no matter how much you twist it and turn it, death occurs in a certain setting.
Yeah.
These are people who knew each other. Somehow someone ended up getting shot.
Yeah.
And even when people are arraigned in court, the people who are arraigned in court were not unfamiliar to the person who was shot or who died.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we've had cases of people found within that compound or within the area of Kilimani in a certain compound, and one isn't certain how the dead body got there. Now, even as we look at Kilimani, the question we should ask specifically is this. Can we know a little bit more about these people? Why do I ask? What is it that is similar? Because if you're talking about a commonality of events, then let's ask ourselves, what is it about the individuals who have died?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at some of those cases, CT, because it's interesting that you say that. Let's look at this timeline. August 22nd, businessman Kevin Omwenga, 28, dies after he's shot in his house at Galana Suites. January 17th, Felix Orinda, popularly known as DJ of Evolve, shot at B Club at Galana Plaza, Embakasi, East MP Babu Owino, charged in court over the incident. March 11th, Dafton Mwitiki, who appeared fully armed at the Duzit 2 hotel during last year's terror attack, was reported missing at the Kilimani police station. He was last seen at his offices at Galana Plaza. At Santonina Court in Kiritwa Gardens Road, the body of Sheila Njeri Morage, 33, discovered in a flower bed. That was July 17th. September 19th, 2019, businesswoman Monica Kimani found dead in her rented apartment off Dennis Pritt Road. Joseph Irungu, a.k.a. Joey, and former journalist Jackie Maribe charged over the death. Okay, young businessman, woman, in this area. This is armed, right? This is the MO. This is rather the the description being given for many of these.
It raises the
individuals.
question about firearm licensing.
Which is why
Because
you see
who are
that
these young people who
DCIO
are
Fatma-
walking around carrying guns, and why do they need them?
And
When
it's-
you're going to apply for a firearm license, what justification did you give? Like, okay, so I am applying to be allowed to carry a firearm, and this is the reason that I require extra personal security. Why? What is it that you do that then justifies the police allowing you to carry a firearm?
What business are you involved in that requires this extra security on your person?
I would even
What
ask
is going on?
a further question. What are the reasons that they normally need for you to be allowed to actually
to
be licensed?
Exactly. What would they need? And I think these are the questions now that are coming up. Because when you hear now that the Kilimani DCI chief, Madam Fatuma, is now asking the licensing board the process through which they now, allowed these firearms to be carried, that exact question that Eric is asking now, what criteria then was fulfilled? What criteria was spelled out? Because it seems like, every Tom, Dick, and Harry now can have a firearm.
Yep.
By virtue of the fact that you make an application.
But of significance, these individuals are all young. There's no one who could be referred to as being elderly. They're all young.
They're all in their youth.
Yes, they are. Then my second question rises: what do they do
What
for
do
a
they
living?
do for a living?
You see, I don't think these are questions that don't have answers. And I'm sure the police, whose job it is to investigate such matters, understand these matters better. And I'm sure they even understand and they even know what is happening. But what I find alarming is this. This hits the headlines, but we do not consider, if you're looking at a demographic, a similar demographic of people in probably less affluent dwelling areas who is the same category. If you're talking about deaths among a population in this country, you will also find that if it is through violence, you'll be dealing with the same demographic.
Yep.
So Is it a larger problem, or has the problem simply moved from where people live in greater numbers to this particular area? And the reason why it is in this area, remember, these are people who, if you look at the history that we are given in the papers, they are people who recently came into
This kind of wealth.
And their lifestyles also tell you
Changed,
something.
right? And their
Yes.
lifestyles before they came into this kind of wealth was as different as night and day.
And there's a
from
gap.
what they're facing now.
and there's usually a gap. The before and after story, there's no thread that sort of like intertwines them. There's just before, after. And in between, there's a lack of clarity.
Yep.
But what also seems to be there is money and an abundance of it. And then there is the display of it through either the vehicle that someone drives, the apartment block, what it rents for,
Yep.
etc., etc. What we call conspicuous consumption. Yes.
And they make sure that it happens. And also you become members of the National Gun Owners Association. I mean, even carrying their weapon is also part of,
Some kind of prestige.
yeah, it's showing off. And I think this puts a spotlight on the National Gun Owners Association as well. I mean, they've got to play a more critical role in assisting the police.
And in also
in
vetting the
vetting.
sort of membership that they should have.
Yeah, in
Yes.
vetting the people who are getting licensed to
Go-
carry firearms.
You know, there's a responsibility that goes with owning a firearm, a rather serious responsibility.
Yeah.
And what one is reading and the way it's presented or the way it is written, you get the impression that you're reading a script from a drama that should actually appear on TV or a series that should appear on TV. And yet, this is real life story, real life people.
Yep.
Yep.
That were alive a couple of days ago.
Yes, people.
Families losing their loved ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Families burying their loved ones, and they're wondering, all right, so what happened to this person? And suddenly they were here, next moment they're gone. Well, we'll be discussing more of this, and in fact, very soon we should be interviewing people from the National Gun Owners Association as well, seeking their own side of responsibility. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're coming to the top of the hour. We will begin the next hour with today's proverb. Remember, we live stream this show on www.spicefm.co.ke, and we are also broadcasting around the country: Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's now 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, it is Monday morning and everybody's trying to get in and out of the city this morning after the weekend. We already know that this morning there's a huge traffic snarl up at Salga past Nakuru. Two trucks have decided that they will greet each other in misorderly fashion today, unfortunately, and that's affecting traffic moving in both directions. There's a fatal accident that has happened on Mombasa Road this morning, unfortunately, and this is affecting traffic inbound. Trying to make sure that you're aware of this as you're trying to get into the city. So be aware that traffic is going to slow down quite considerably so on Mombasa Road. Juja Road is a no-go zone this morning, guys. Traffic is extremely slow. Some eye-rolling proportions, unfortunately. Coming off of Thika Road, we know that the road has opened after construction of the bridge this morning at 4:30. It continues for another day, tomorrow being Tuesday. Should be the last day, but this means that there will be traffic. So yes, that's the news I have for you this morning. Traffic is going to be a nightmare this Monday morning, but at least you can smile through it. Spice FM KE, that's how you can speak to us and let us know what it is that you see.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
Broadcasting
day.
from Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0. We broadcast to Eldoret on 96.7, Njeri and the surrounding areas, 90.9, and Malindi and the region, 97.7. We also live stream the show on www.spicefm.co.ke as well as SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And for the next 2 hours, we are also live on KTN Home. I'd like to say a very good morning to our audience on KTN Home. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga will start us off with today's proverb.
Today's proverb is from Ghana. A child can play with its mother's breasts, but not his father's testicles.
Okay.
In the nature of sayings and proverbs, it gives you food for thought.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Is there any close translation of this proverb in Kiswahili? One of the Swahili medhalis that comes close to this one, or at least in any of the languages in Kenya, because this is a proverb from Ghana, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We'd like to know if you have any that you think comes close to this particular proverb. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Let us know. Interesting to hear this. So let's talk about the war over COVID funds and the probe that's ongoing over the COVID funds. We saw over the weekend, well, not over the weekend, over the whole of last week, issues unraveling and details emerging and details being fought, and there's a lot of pushback on how COVID funds have been spent in the country. A lot of money has come in from the government itself, from the World Bank, from other development partners, and it was all going towards the fight against COVID-19 to buy the crucial stuff like PPEs, to buy the equipment that's needed, to buy the reagents and the testing kits that are required to boost our testing capability. And then stories start to emerge that, first of all, they arrive at JKIA, they disappear. The donation from Jack Ma. It's not clear where it ended up, whether the full Jack Ma consignment ended up where it was supposed to have gone. And then now there's the issue of procurement for supply of this crucial material. The Kenya Medical Supplies Agency comes to the spotlight here. And there's an investigation that's ongoing with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And also the Senate is probing this particular matter. And then we saw a statement by the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna over the weekend, and he was saying, look, we need not sensationalize this particular issue of KEMSA. Let's wait for proper investigations to take place. We actually need the Auditor General to come and tell us, all right, so these people who are contracted to supply to Kenya Medical Supplies Agency overquoted or underquoted or were not qualified, all right? So there was a break of procedure. And of course, with that, there was a lot of backlash as well, with the Deputy President says the pretentious former opposition, now turned lords of corruption, attempted defense of the COVID grand larceny is not shocking. Musalia Mudavadi says they, that he means the profiteers, need to be stopped. The public is restless and we now require answers. The evangelical churches have come out as well. We did not speak because there was an opposition, but now it has joined the government and we cannot keep quiet. The Kenya National Union of Nurses says we will not allow the ODM to defend graft when Kenyans are dying over poor health services. And the Raila Odinga, the ODM leader, says how does that become a loss when the government has given someone a tender? The only problem would be if you create some monopoly. So where is the money and where does this direction go?
It's interesting that this is now what everybody's touting about now. But we saw the signs of this months ago when there was either a budget, no budget, spent funds not spent. Really, which one is it? This thing started to go south months ago when it wasn't really clear what the explanation was in terms of money being spent on COVID. So I can understand that everybody's now throwing a hat into the ring in terms of an opinion. and people talking about we couldn't speak up because of certain things. There was a block, and so now we could not open our mouths. I'm sorry, but unless there's actually literally physically a tangible block on your mouth, you always have the opportunity to speak up. You always have the chance to say something. You have the chance to stand on the right side of things and speak up when you see things going wrong. So to then come and say that we didn't have the opportunity to speak because of 1, 2, 3, or we didn't really know what was going on. You see something going south, you speak up about it. You see something going rotten, you talk about it. You don't wait until things have completely gone south and then try to salvage something that's already at the bottom of the ocean. It's a bit difficult at that point, in my humble opinion.
What is of significance, in my opinion, is that even as I read all this, I'm wondering, you're not telling us anything new. Neither is the corruption new. Neither is it the first time that KEMSA has been in the news for the ill deeds that are attributed to the senior management within it, or to the organization. What seems apparent is that this fight that we keep talking about, that is supposed to be focused on corruption in the country, much as it's being fought, the corruption seems to be larger than life. It's overwhelming. It's massive. So even the efforts that we see, even when there are gains, it's minuscule compared to the dragon or to the giant proportion of what corruption actually is, or what it occupies, not just in the minds, but in the realm of this particular country. It's massive.
What's interesting is that nobody's denying that this money has gone missing.
You see, the reason why this is...
It's not even being
No.
denied.
But it is part of a pattern that we see in the country. It's part of what we always talk about here. It just happens to be now it's related to COVID. You think it's any different when you have a situation where, for instance, some dams are supposed to be built, budgeted for, money allocated, and it's in the billions of shillings. Nothing significant happens, yet the money seems to have been spent. If we go back into history, if we're talking about Goldenberg, any major scandal that this country has had, for as far back as we want to think, the May scandal in 1965, all these things, all that seems to happen. The SGR is just that they just get bigger and bigger, and the perpetrators get bolder and bolder. So that it's like a pattern. It'll happen, it'll be discussed, it'll be castigated.
People will make
then
noise, be upset for a
then
minute.
we'll keep quiet, and then we will wait for the next scandal to visit us, and then we go through the same song and dance yet again. But there's something that has happened which is of interest. One sees the anti-graft agencies are at least doing something that you can say something is being done. People hauled to court. We hear of money that cannot be easily explained, taken back. But the truth of the matter is that all this, much as one can see the effort, one wishes a lot more was done. Yes.
In this particular case, ever since, for example, the story that came out on NTV, and it was pointing towards what is happening at KEMSA. Even before that, the issue had, gone into KEMSA, the procurement at KEMSA, what companies were involved in supplying this PPEs and the rest through KEMSA. And the question started emerging from there. And the board started now taking action. The board went and suspended the CEO of KEMSA plus 2 other managers, senior manager procurement and another manager at KEMSA. EACC came in and requested the suspension of these particular officers. So EACC is already investigating what's happening. And then now we see that the Senate is investigating this same matter. Soon you will hear the National Assembly opening its own investigation over the same matter. Musalia Mudavadi is saying, you know what, why don't we have a unified commission of inquiry and make it public so that everybody can see and hear what happened at KEMSA. Everybody can hear the questions being asked and everybody can hear the people answering those questions. So it's not, this happened in camera, somebody comes one time and says, and I have evidence to show you, but I'd like to share this information in camera. No. Wants it to be public. Is it a way to go? A public inquiry?
I don't know that it would change anything significantly. I mean, if you give, for example, 3 months ago, or rather, 3 months ago in April, when we saw the first, you heard smelt the first whiff of this thing, we were told that the budget report would be made public after it was rescinded. After the first report was rescinded, we were then told that that second budget would be made public. Till today, that has not been put out into the public domain. It hasn't. So whether you make it private, whether you make it public, if these folks want to do what they want to do, they're going to continue in that manner. They're going to continue in that fashion. Because you want me to say something to you publicly, I will just keep the same mantra from morning till night, no matter what the case is. And that's what you're talking about, CT. It's become so normalized that it's even being done with almost an air of arrogance. Like, this is what we're doing. Dare you ask me a question about it? You want me to make it public? I'll make it public. But this is the way in which we operate. So you can't ask, even if you ask me to change it, you're not going to really get anything in terms of an answer. It's become normalized, and to the point where it's even being done in your face, and nobody is asking questions about it, and nobody expects an answer.
Whenever a country is threatened by imminent danger, whether it's internal or external, our law allows for something called a state of emergency to be declared. Corruption, in my opinion, has reached that particular crescendo. If the Senate and Parliament wanted to be of use to the citizenry of this country, they should start discussing the sort of laws that we should actually have in place to deal with this menace, so that this dancing around issues ceases, so that people who are charged with those duties are given special powers to do certain things, so that when you are mentioned, this is what happens. If you are found culpable, this is what happens. In terms of not just you going to jail, no, everything surrounding corruption, so that it is dealt with conclusively. Right now, all we're going to do is change the dance styles. When we're moving left, we're now going to move left, right. And there'll be a lot of noise. These toothless church leaders will come and tell us the sort of things that they like saying, which one wishes they would just keep quiet.
Don't even bother.
You want them to keep quiet? Why?
No, they should just keep quiet.
Why?
Because the church is supposed to act as a conscience. When you're a conscience, you don't wait for something to happen. You prick before it even happens so that it doesn't happen.
Even if you see the sightings
And when it happens?
or even when you see the sightings of the same.
When it happens, you speak even louder. But when your voice is joined with a cacophony of other people whose voices we are tired of hearing, because they themselves are not as clean as they want to, as they sound to be, who in our political class can be said to be clean? Who? One individual who you can say, this one is squeaky clean. They're squeaky not clean.
So why do you take issue with the church issuing a statement?
I'm taking issue because the conscience doesn't prick you after the event. It should prick you before, during, and then after.
While it's happening, that's what Jiminy Cricket does. Remember Jiminy Cricket?
So, look,
At the time of, it's speaking to you. It's the little voice in your head. Now, what CT is saying is that little
The
voice
theft-
in your head
the theft is
is
still
the role
ongoing.
that
I mean,
the
we are
church
not
is
done with
supposed to
COVID.
play.
the theft is still ongoing.
Eric, then the noise should have been ongoing. Right from the very beginning, and a reminder of what, not just what has happened, but what ought to happen, what must happen, what should happen. But it has happened. And then you're saying,
Does it take away anything?
Yes, it does.
Does the fact that now the church spoke yesterday, Bishop Mark
does.
Kariuki and the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya spoke yesterday, does it take away anything?
It does.
What?
If what is quoted as having been said by them is true, I would rather they had kept quiet.
What they're saying is this: it is both despicable and almost unbelievable to learn that some unscrupulous businessmen have successfully exploited the COVID-19 pandemic to fraudulently deprive Kenyans of the so much needed medical supplies to fatten their bank accounts. It is most regrettable that some donors have already given notice of withdrawing medical aid, which was meant to benefit malaria, HIV, and AIDS patients to the tune of 400 billion shillings.
Eric, how long has this news of KEMSA been in the news? How long? Just KEMSA specifically. How long have we had it?
About 2 or 3 weeks.
Precisely. And they're talking now. Now.
Yeah, it's within 2 or 3 weeks.
No.
It's less than a month.
In my opinion, they might as well have kept quiet.
Your conscience is an ongoing thing. Your conscience doesn't decide to take a break. Your conscience doesn't decide, okay, yeah, well, let's wait for things to escalate and then we'll say something about it. Your conscience is an ongoing constant reminder of how you should be
Or
living,
what
how
you ought
should
to
be
do.
operating, or what you should be doing.
And yes.
It's a constant thing. It doesn't take a break. It doesn't go on holiday. It says that every time, really, it's a difficult job. But, by the time you've put yourself in that position, then you might as well fulfill what it's asking you to do. It doesn't say that you say, okay, well, let's hold on and see what's going to happen. Or we thought that such and such was going to be the case. That's why we didn't speak up. No, you speak up.
I feel we are
speak
shooting
up.
a prophet just because the prophet is speaking too close to the event he's supposed to prophesy. Because if we tell the church leaders to keep quiet, then whom do you expect to speak? We're already saying, you're already casting
But they were already
no.
quiet.
You're already casting
And
aspersion
Eric, they were already
It's
silent.
just a continuance of what you are doing anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
you might as well just continue being silent.
And then who shall we hear speaking?
Well,
We
we
didn't
hear the
have anyone
voices
speaking
in the
anyway,
first
The
place.
so-
politicians.
Eric,
Already we are saying the politicians, we don't want to
Eric,
hear from the
Eric,
politicians.
the point is when you speak when politicians are speaking, one may have difficulties determining the difference.
No, one we may start listening to at least I can hear from the church. At least I can trust the church. And when I'm hearing politicians speaking here saying,
And why should I trust the
oh,
church?
thank God I'm not the one who's going to be called the Lord of corruption over this COVID
And why should
thing."
I trust the church,
that's
Eric?
what the
Because
deputy-
they have spoken at the same time the politicians are speaking? Or did they speak earlier and us in the media only reporting it now?
Well, I'm sure if you went to church, maybe they were speaking in church.
City wasn't allowed in church until last week.
The truth of the matter is this, there is a very specific role that the church is supposed to play. Very specific. It's not something that requires redefinition. It was long defined, even before I was born. Now, if they have abrogated that role, and abrogation in this case is by keeping quiet at the time when you should speak, timely speaking, warning, not just speaking, warning. Now that we have COVID, this corruption that we tend to have and we tend to see in these matters, warning, speaking about it, so that when it happens, it's within a background of them having spoken about it. Silence! And then now you join your voice with that of politicians.
Keep on keeping quiet,
Keep
man.
quiet.
But let's head back to where the issue is. The issue is being probed in the Senate. The issue is being probed by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The issue, like I'm saying, because we have a very active Committee of Health in the National Assembly, they may also take up the issue. Actually, they've already been summoning people to come and explain how they're spending the money that has been allocated and appropriated for the fight against COVID-19. So it's going to be broad. Is there sense in having all these multiple investigations and probes going
No.
on at the same time?
No. The public inquiry that the former vice president has brought up, in my opinion, would make sense. Because then, and especially if it's public, so you get to hear, and you get to know, and you get to follow it. The moment all these bodies, unfortunately, start getting involved in the same issue,
Yeah.
already we have anti-graft agencies whose job it is to investigate these things. That's their job, right? Have they concluded their investigations?
No. But Parliament also has an oversight role, and so
Yes.
it's playing its oversight role.
I have not diminished their role, neither have I diminished the importance of what they're doing. I'm simply saying that there are people whose job it is. Parliament doesn't have the ability to do what the DCI can do. They don't. Neither do they have the ability to do what the Ethics and Anti-Corruption can do. They don't. These bodies normally do due diligence, and then the reports that they bring about, if I'm not wrong, are what? These are the documents that often form part of the discussions that Parliament have. Is that not so? Yes. Remember, in the not too recent past, we had a situation where the governor of Kirinyaga went to the Senate. And what did the Senate say? The Senate said, look, we neither have the capacity nor the ability to investigate this matter in depth. So we urge the agencies, in fact, we direct the agencies whose function and mandate it is to look into such matter to do so. The same would apply to Parliament. Parliament would also not have the ability to do this. So the agencies whose mandate it is to carry out these things, have they carried out their duty? Have they come to a conclusion on these matters? The answer is no. So where Mr. Mudavidi's view comes in hand, he says, when you have all these agencies doing the same thing, there's bound to be a confusion.
So the Senate had summoned the bosses of KEMSA last week, and the suspended CEO did not turn up, and because Apparently, he said that he was in hospital. He had been admitted to the Kenyatta National Hospital. The Senate demanded proof and evidence that this man is actually undergoing treatment at KNH. We don't know whether they got it. We'll be speaking to one of the members of this health committee of the Senate, that is the Narok Senator Ledamo Olekina, shortly. He'll tell us what they found out at that time and why they are investigating this and what they hope to unearth from this, what they have so far. This is focusing mainly on KEMSA. And we want to understand, is this just focusing on KEMSA? Because was KEMSA the only one that is dealing with the procurement for COVID-19? Have counties themselves had any direct procurement for COVID-19? And we know that they have. This is basically just asking a rhetorical question. It's not everybody who has procured through KEMSA. Even counties have procured directly. The Ministry of Health itself has done some work directly. And this we've heard being said. So we want to understand whether this probe will extend beyond just KEMSA, going into the health ministry, going into others, and whether this is going to be unearthing the real dawns behind corruption in the country or in KEMSA. Is it just about, the CEO of KEMSA?
If you're talking about corruption around COVID, then these questions must be asked in their entirety. And we start with the Ministry of Health. And then we go to the counties and the various bodies within the counties that are responsible for ensuring that procurement for COVID-related supplies are actually provided. Because that's what the problem is. We've had problems and we've discussed them. Monies given, the 5 billion kitty that was divided among the 47 counties to help them in their preparedness to cope with COVID. That one was a shamble. That one was anything but what it was supposed to be. And then there are the donations that were given by our partners in the West and elsewhere towards the same cause. Again, what you see is smoke and dust. Lack of clarity. Now, if you're going to have an investigation and it doesn't include all these things, Eric, when all these things were happening, where was the church? Forget KEMSA. When all these things were happening, it's not as though they happened at once. One happened, then another, then another, then another, then another. Where were they? A conscience that is asleep is not a conscience.
It's not a conscience. A conscience that is asleep is not a conscience. And, if the common man could, if anybody who was on the ground was seeing that there's something going wrong with this, should have been able to say, you know what, we see there's something going wrong with this. Then again, your conscience should have been able to speak up. And I say in some cases where it proves to be a little bit too late, then don't even bother. Don't even bother saying anything about it, and let's just move on as has been, because it didn't change anything by you speaking at this point. It doesn't really change a thing.
It adds to the voices. It adds to the weight. It adds to the clamor for the truth to come out.
Eric,
Try to imagine how much further it would have gone if they spoke up a little earlier.
Well, yeah, but now they're speaking up now.
it's late.
Combined, they're speaking up now. Individually, they've been speaking up.
Eric, there's a problem here when there are too many voices.
When
now
we
it becomes noise.
When we hosted the head of the All Saints Cathedral here, the provost, he spoke about the same thing. He said it would be important to understand what exactly the government is doing in the fight against COVID-19, and especially where the money is going. They have spoken individually. Now they have come out to say, all right, so we add our voice to this whole issue, and we are also demanding that we need accountability for the spending of this money.
The provost is in charge of All Saints Cathedral, but he has a boss called a bishop.
Yep.
Okay? Now that bishop belongs to a group that covers and embodies other bishops.
Yes.
Now these are the people who, when they speak out, you could say the church is represented in totality. Then there are other groups that bring in other denominations, and the evangelicals is one such group. My point is a simple one. They have a role which they have not carried out efficiently, effectively. Adding your voice to noises that are already there does not help the situation. A lot of what ought to have been said should have been said a long time ago, before these things started happening, because the patterns of this thing happening in the country are not unknown to us. They're not secret to us. We know. We said it ourselves when COVID. Eric, you brought out and said, COVID, this one. Goodness gracious me. I wonder what people are planning and how it is they're thinking of lining their pockets with COVID.
And here we are. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to Narok Senator Ledama Olekina. He's a member of the Health Committee that's probing this issue of COVID and the COVID millionaires. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, online and on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's cloudy and the showers are coming down in most parts of Nairobi this morning at 14 degrees. We're likely to see that the showers will continue throughout today. In Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions at 16 and likely to have rain showers later on. Let's take a look into Eldoret, where it's cloudy at 14 and the rain will start coming down there in a short while, getting into the short rain season, so we can understand this. Kisumu, 17 degrees and partly cloudy conditions. We will see rain showers there as well. We'll take a look at Kakamega, where it's cloudy at 17, highs of 26 today. In Mombasa, partly cloudy conditions at 22. Those partly cloudy conditions will continue through the day, as they will in Malindi, where it's currently 21 degrees and heading upwards. Okay, take a look then into Kampala, where at 23 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through today. Dar es Salaam slightly warmer at 26 and cloudy conditions throughout most parts of today. Johannesburg warming up ever so slightly at 9 degrees now. We'll see sunny conditions through the day with highs of 18. And in Lagos, finally for now, 26 degrees and partly cloudy conditions. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 23.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so it seems that we have traffic everywhere you look. Mombasa Road looks to be bumper to bumper all the way from the SGR and interestingly through till General Motors, and then thereafter all the way down to Bellevue. You get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout heading towards Langata Road, or then through to Uhuru Highway. It is a bumper to bumper situation, but then you'll be fine through Bagathi Way, and then out from Gong Road towards Valley Road. It looks good. Coming in from Westlands, you're given the all clear. Not too much of an issue as you get to the University Way roundabout. However, coming in from Thika Road inbound today, it's an absolute mess, and we know that guys started out late after the roads opened a little bit late today at 4:30. That construction continues until tomorrow, so please plan ahead of time so that you don't have any issues getting out. Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. Keep it moving this Monday morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, in Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru and its environs, including Narok 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Njeri and Malindi 97.7. We're also live on KTN Home as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. We are looking at the investigation that is now currently ongoing in the Senate regarding this expenditure for COVID-19 funds. And joining us on the line is a member of the Health Committee of the Senate, who is the Narok Senator Ledama Olekina. Good morning, Bona Senator.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Karibu sana. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Now, Senator,
Thank you for having me.
thank you. Let's just start off by understanding what your committee is investigating.
We are piercing the corporate veil. We want to understand everything that has transpired in terms of resources that have been given to us by well-wishers, money that has been allocated both by Treasury, Exchequer, and also money that has been donated to us by funds. And why, how those tenders were dished out, whether people supplied air or not. And in terms of it, we want to understand the impact of it, because I just don't understand how billions can be directly expended and when no one is accountable for it. And we don't see the impact. So that's the biggest thing that we're trying to look into.
So is it going to extend beyond the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency?
Absolutely. You bet you. Anything that I'm involved in, we'll do it differently. I've got a good background in accounting. I understand how things are done. I've also looked at the issue of corporate governance, and I also understand what a fiduciary responsibility means. So really, we're looking at everything, because, sometimes I hear a lot of people arguing that, the Auditor General should look into it. Remember, I'm a member of the CPIC, or the Country Public Accounts and Investment Committee, and I know what the auditor looks at. Or the auditor really is only supposed to give an opinion whether a company has been able to follow the international accounting standards in terms of keeping their records. In fact, it's just only recently that we started looking into the lawfulness of the operations. So in this case, we are looking at a lot of things. We want to look at those tenders. We're a country of 47 million people. Not only a few people should be enriching themselves. So to be fair to Kenyans, and to be fair and to be open to the people who have been so kind to help us deal with this pandemic, we must come out with the truth.
Senator, it seems that, even as this starts, you're going to probably, what has brought it to the fore is COVID-19. All right, as has a lot of things in this country. Likelihood of you finding, or this committee, or through the probe, or however it will be, that a lot more is going wrong beyond mismanagement of COVID funding. How do you think then that you would deal with that? Because it seems that COVID is just a cover for much, much more that is going wrong, and not just at KEMSA.
You see, I think the problem starts right there with your statement. When we narrow down into an issue, people always come up with a different narrative that we should be looking at other greater things, not just this.
No, I didn't say you should be looking at something greater. I said there's a possibility that there would be other things that would come about as a result of that. And it seems...
And that's okay. And that's okay. I mean, I think, if you are given a responsibility, a fiduciary duty, people entrust you with their resources, then by all means, you should demonstrate that you're capable of ensuring that that fiduciary duty. I mean, it's about time that we do things differently, really. We shouldn't be enriching ourselves with money that is supposed to help the public, the poor and vulnerable. I mean, it's just about time that things are done differently in this country. And if we uncover or we unearth all the things we'll be doing, we will not let them sidetrack us. We will focus on one issue to the end. Then the other, we can give it to the other authorities to look into it. Remember, I'm only doing my job as an oversight body. Remember, the people who have elected us expect us to be their ombudspersons. So really, when people have complained, people have raised issues about the tenders, which have been dished out to a few individuals. A company is open tomorrow. That company does not have any financial muscles. It's given a tender. It's facilitated. It gets So we need to understand that, because once we carry out that proper investigation, it will also, it will also guide us in terms of legislations. Remember, and I hope Kenyans, are open to, really doing things differently. You have to remember. You have to go back and say, what is the source of all this mess? Maybe no one predicted that there'll be COVID, but of course, someone knew that they will enrich themselves through single sourcing, making it easy for them to be able to deal with one entity that can then spell out to the 47 counties. That started with this miscellaneous amendment bills, where the KEMSA Act was amended to make it mandatory for all. The health, through the Health Act, of course, make it mandatory for all 47 counties to purchase medical supplies from one entity. And when you look at the whole spectrum, and you ask yourself, because I've read some of the articles I read the one in the Standard today, where in fact the person who wrote that article, or maybe interviewed the person who was being interviewed and quoted, didn't really understand the role of the Ministry of Health in terms of the accounting officer, the PS. Remember, the PS, gives KEMSA the list of medicals which they should purchase and sell to the counties. Remember that even the donations which are given to this country, the Ministry of Health still pays KEMSA to store them. So you'll find that even the medicine which is being stored at KEMSA stores end up costing more, just paying the storage fee, than if the counties were allowed to purchase them elsewhere.
So what is this?
There's a lot to this.
What is this probe aiming to achieve in terms of looking at, now you've started off with KEMSA, and the allegations all along have always been that there's a huge connected cartel that operates Mafia House, and this is Afia House, and it's the one that pulls the strings in all these agencies associated with the Ministry of Health. Is this just are you just focusing on KEMSA, or are you looking at the Ministry of Health?
Eric, I've indicated this clearly. I've said it over and over again. I'll repeat it. We want to do things differently this time around. We want to demand a fiduciary duty. So if during the course of our investigation, it leads us into untangling a web of the mafioso, so be it. Then we will put it out there to the Kenyans. We've done our job. The other day, in fact, I was asking some of my colleagues, say, tell me, what happened to the Act on private prosecution? Because when I read the Act on private prosecution, it tends to relate to the Attorney General and say you should seek for permission from the Attorney General. We know that Act was an old Act, which now needs to be amended, because currently the DPP is the one who's in charge of prosecutions. So really, the Act says you should seek permission from the Attorney General. Yet the procedure is through you can seek permission. If if it doesn't give you permission, you can go to court and seek permission through the magistrate court. But there's so many other things which makes it difficult. So we need to, this issue will help us be able to now further amend the Private Prosecution Act, so that we remove other punitive measures, such that if there's anything that deals with public interest, the requirement that you pay a deposit to the court in terms of liability to the party that you're going to be suing should be removed. So we hope that this process will be able to help us. It will also be able to farm certain aspects, because maybe, just maybe, the DPP might say, there's no case here, but yet we have probably unearthed. And Eric, when I talk about this, I talk with experience. I've been in committees that have unearthed serious malpractices, but at the end of the day, it becomes a competition between different government agencies, between the ESCC, the DPP, the judiciary, So really, we're in a very, very, very dicey situation. And if Kenyans would come together and really demand for accountability, and also even take time to understand legislation process, then we might be able to send a few people to jail. We might also be able to change the law such that no single company, when it comes to an issue like this that affects 47 counties, should ever be allowed to be given a tender that exceeds 20 million.
It's interesting that you bring that up about Kenyans' participation in all of this, because voices have been raised on different platforms, whether it is again through public participation or through the media or whatever it is. People have been raising their voices, saying that something needs to be done about corruption. When these COVID would-be scandals, reared their ugly heads, people have been asking, then something should be done. Corruption must stop. I'd like to ask, how does that play on your minds, for example, as members of a committee who are probing into this? Does that give you any kind of added pressure to make sure that you unearth the truth and then something then is done about this? Do the voices of Kenyans who are speaking up against this give you pressure to want to have a positive result out of this probe?
I think one of the things that gives me a lot of pressure is my moral obligation. I must, when I talk about moral obligation, I must ensure that I divorce myself from any interest in terms of, what might come out, and look at, the evidence that will be tabled, and so that I can be able to let the country, the public know that I have done this. And based on the evidence that has been provided, this is what we've been able to find out. Because the problem is that sometimes the pressure from the public can corrode your moral authority. You might want to preach to the gallery because everybody's saying this has been done this way, this has been done this way. So for me to be able to be fair, because it is not right to condemn anyone before they are heard. But when you're given an opportunity to be heard and you disappear, then of course people draw their conclusion. I think what I may want to see happen is that I think one, the public should be asking questions and seriously ask those questions. Whenever we see on social media, because the social media is becoming more powerful, sometimes even than the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is maybe owned by us politicians. So we try to gag our editorial departments and tell them, don't talk about this and this. But the public are able to express themselves through social media. So, but that should not be confused to be the gospel truth. Remember, last week, a lot of these public figures, their accounts have either been mutilated or fake accounts, set up. But, and that's why, so you can never be able to say, okay, this is where the truth is.
Yeah.
So really, we have to be extremely careful.
Senator,
and in a nutshell, what I'm saying there in a nutshell is that we have to allow, you must have a moral authority or moral obligation to be able to unearth the truth.
When you talk about public pressure and public interest on a matter such as this one, and you understand clearly there's a lot of public interest, there's also a lot of great public sentiment that the political class are the beneficiaries of such huge tenders, or people who are connected to people in the political class are the beneficiaries. So when a probe like this is happening through a political process, then there is this doubt whether you are really going to unearth the actual culprits or you're going to throw people under the bus. Say, for example, pick up a few people who are in the management of KEMSA and other departments and say that these ones are culpable, and yet the people who actually benefited from such procurement are left to walk scot-free.
Eric, you are very right. The people who get tenders are the people who are connected to politicians. We are the worst form of, we're the most corrupt individuals in this country. We, the politicians. And I say that being very honest. And that is why some of us don't do any business with government. We try to do some things differently. When I say that we're going to pierce the corporate veil, is to ensure that we know who are behind that. What I would like to see happen, and this is what I'm going to insist in my committee, and Eric, I'm going to do things a bit different, because when we try to look at all the beneficiaries of any business transaction, includes the public in itself through the Kenya Revenue Authority. Eric, if you own a company, let's say, what do you call it? CW Executives, whatever, Media House.
Mm-hmm.
When you come in and you work with government and you're given a tender of 1 billion, 30% of that money should go to KRA.
Mm-hmm.
And that benefits the public. That's a corporate tax.
Yep.
Further, if you, Eric, as executive, is given, what do you call it? You get your dividend. You are required to pay 30% on that.
Yep.
Through through your income tax. So if we are sincere, and the country is sincere and wants to do things differently, then once we pierce that corporate veil, we'll unearth who are behind these companies. The suppliers who supplied you to be able to supply to KEMSA are also required to pay VAT, and they're also required to pay their income tax and their corporate tax. So we can follow up and create, it becomes like a Gantt chart where all these things relate to one another.
Yep.
If we are indeed sincere, if we go through that extent, not these things that the auditors do, which I know, but if we do a serious forensic audit, by all means, the ground will shake.
From what we have
people
seen, from what you have seen in the sessions of your committee, are we to really get confidence that we are going to see the difference that you've talked about, like now 4 times? You've said 4 times now that this probe is going to be conducted differently. Do you get the sense and the confidence that your own committee members are going to go with you in this different route?
Nothing stops me from giving a dissenting opinion and arguing why. There's always a saying that says the majority will always have their way and the minority will have their say. If the members of my committee think differently, I will dissent. I've got that, I've got that leeway, or rather that right to dissent. And once I dissent, at the end of the day, the truth shall always set us free. So I do hope, and I have confidence in my committee members, that we will all be able to walk the same path of, divorcing our own, material interest with the interest of the public.
Senator, let me ask this question. When all these... This is C.T. Muga. How are you, sir?
C.T., how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
Yes.
These processes that we are speaking of, when we've gone through them and come to the end, what is this thing that in an ideal situation we should see, or which the public will see and say, indeed, our interest has been taken care of? What would we see happening to those who are fraudulent?
Do you want a straight answer?
I want a very straight answer. Simple, yes.
Whatever the findings, if the findings are what we think they are, those people should be paraded at Uhuru Park and either stoned to death, or the military, the paramilitary is brought in, and the rest will be history. Because we just say enough is enough. That is my straight answer to that.
All right, but if we follow the law, because what you've just said, even...
All right, so let me then answer the other way.
Yes.
We want people to be prosecuted, and we want a prosecution process where the judiciary is not controlled. The judiciary is not influenced. I would rather, even if we can be able to say, guys, because we've benefited a lot from the international community, let us find a way to even allow certain judges to come in who are completely independent and who have got no interest, nobody knows them. They appear before that and they only make their judgment based on the facts. And in this case, we try to deviate a little bit from the due process of the law, where instead of something starting from the magistrate, going to the High Court, all the way going to the Supreme Court, we simply just say we have a bench of 5 judges or 7 judges who will be the ones who will be looking into the evidence, and their decision will be final and cannot be appealed unless there's something, there's serious errors in missions.
What would that process look like? Would that be a judicial commission?
It
Would
has
that
to be no, I don't think it should be a judicial inquiry. I think it should just be a proper, court process where evidence is tabled and witnesses are cross-examined, and the decision is based squarely on looking at a few legislations and also in terms of accountability, like the PFM Act or the Public Audit Act or the Public and Procurement Disposable Act, PPDA, and the Constitution. You put those 4, maybe even the Health Act. You look at what the Act says, and the problem that I have with the issue of auditors coming in, the auditors in their finding. First of all, for them to give an opinion, you must be able to say you follow the procedures, like you've got the tender document, you've got all this and this and this.
Yep.
Then they render their opinion. But we have to look at the law first. And also we have to look at who else has lost money. Eric and City and my dear sister. The problem normally occurs when an audit process is carried out, an opinion is rendered. And once the opinion is rendered, people shout, and nothing is followed. In this case, we want to do it in a way that we can be able to unearth, and we can also be able to ensure that Caesar gets his share.
Caesar gets what's due to them. Senator, before we let you go, as the interview comes to an end, you're a member of ODM, and you've seen what the leadership of ODM has said with regards to the issue of KEMSA, that we should allow due process to be followed. We should wait for an Auditor General's report. I know you've just talked about the auditors and why the auditors should not come in. What is it that you would say to that statement?
I would literally, I think I've already aired that sentence. I think if you look at my tweets, they speak volume. I've been against any entity controlling either the oversight authority or anyone out there, regardless of who they are. They should let the people who are tasked to carry out their mandate. I've always said that there's no party position when it comes to issue corruption. I think you have to allow the due process of the law to carry its day. So really, I don't associate myself with that position, because people are speaking without having all the evidence. Some of us who have come across most of that evidence are not even talking about the details, but we're just saying people should be held accountable.
All right.
They should be responsible.
So as we conclude, Senator, what is it that you'd like to say to Kenyans to assure them that what we are seeing in the Senate now with regards to investigations on the expenditure of COVID-19 will be a clean report that will be produced by this committee?
First of all, I seek prayers, because some of us who are walking that path want to do something different. I also want to tell Kenyans that to have some little faith, because we're out there, elected by the people, to be able to represent. It is sad that there are millions of Kenyans who have got no access to vote. It is sad that there are millions of Kenyans who cannot be able to get any health facilities. We are very lucky as leaders. We're paid a lot of money, Eric, a lot of money. And we want to make sure that when we are paid that money is enough for us, to be able to do our job so that other people can also be able to see tomorrow. There are people, Eric, who because of our actions as politicians, die every day because they cannot be able to get the services that we promise them, or the things that we say we do, and the things which are written down.
Yep.
Most of our achievements are just good on paper, but in reality they are not. But it's not one man's job. It's not only the Senate. We've got the National Assembly, which is also tasked in oversighting the national government. We've got the DPP. We've got the DCI. The only thing I would pick and I would request, I would beseech them in terms of these bodies, not to be vindictive, not to be controlled. Like what happened last week, where 3 of my colleagues were arrested when they were about to vote. It was something which is very, very, important in terms of revenue allocation to counties. So really, we need prayers. We need them to have a little faith in the process of Senate, and hopefully we will be able to unearth the truth.
Thank you very much.
And finally, I'd say, would rather be accused of having failed, but not having tried.
Indeed. We want to thank you very much, Honorable Ledama Olekina, Narok Senator, for speaking to us this morning. The country will be watching what you are doing in that Senate, and especially when it comes to unearthing the people who are behind the huge scandal that is unfolding here in terms of this expenditure of the billions for COVID-19, when people have died, when doctors have even had to down their tools because they did not have access to PPEs, when our testing capacity is still below 600,000 samples because we are told we are not able to procure the testing capability. We'll be watching, Senator.
Thank you, Eric.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. This conversation continues. We want to take a short break right here on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Talking about the Kenya Ports Authority information portal, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
So Captain Cargo walks you through how to get some of these things done. Today we're looking at vessel service processes, and we're going to take to the shipping agent, after you've done your shopping, of course, submits import cargo manifest to KRA and prior to your vessel arrival. So your vessel is coming in with these goods, and then your shipping agent receives a vessel control number for the ship call and voyage online. And then you get a notification used to update 14 days the list of your vessel arrivals. So the port is very clear about what they're going to offer you by the time your goods come in on this particular vessel, and saying that there's a lot of documentation that you will be getting to make sure that you're on the right track. And all of this information, yet again, is on the portal, which is captaincargo.kpa.co.ke.
Indeed it is. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Okay, definitely still chock-a-blocked today on Thika Road. Coming into the CBD, it's not moving as much as we'd like it to, but then we need some patience to be able to get through this one today. Ngong Road is raining, so please drive very carefully. It's slippery and some parts are not yet marked. Remember that road has been completed, but also be mindful because everybody is going as they please. The road is still unmarked, so you want to be careful there. All right, still raining in certain parts of the city, so just generally take it easy. There was already an accident on Mombasa Road, a fatal one this morning, unfortunately. So this is affecting traffic all the way down the road. Okay. At the Muthaiga underpass, unfortunately, there's been another accident and 4 vehicles involved this time, back to back to back to back. And so you guys, as we're going through this, just be very, very careful. Approach the area with caution because it has not been removed yet in terms of that accident. The southern bypass this morning is clogged with fog. Okay, so we'll give you more details of what it looks like in a bit.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
so
the only way to start your day.
Third hour of the Situation Room, which is Kenya's biggest conversation. 2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Let's start the hour with today's proverb, CT.
A child can play with its mother's breasts, but not his father's testicles. Choose your toys carefully.
That's it. Choose your toys.
Yeah,
Any
Eric-
other
Eric-
proverb
Eric
that
is
you
gonna
think?
mull
You
over
know,
this one for some time today.
Yeah. I'm seeing who's this? Wayne Steele Muga on Twitter says, "However handsome you are, you can never sleep with your mother."
Okay.
Coming close to that?
Well.
Any proverb that is in Swahili, any Swahili methali that you think comes close to this one, or any that we can relate with in this country, it's something we would love to know. A child can play with its mother's breasts, but never its father's testicles. The conversation continues. We were speaking with the Senator Ledama Olekina, the Narok Senator, who is also a member of the Health Committee of the Senate, and they are investigating this whole scandal of COVID-19 and the funds. They have summoned the leadership of the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. Last week, the CEO, Dr. Njeri, was not able to turn up because apparently he reported that he was unwell. It was reported that he was unwell and admitted to hospital, so he could not turn up. And we are hearing what the senator is saying. One of the things that I've heard him say over and over and over again is, we'd like to do things differently. We'd like to do this. Where are you going? Why are you asking Google to show you directions?
My phone
Stay
has-
here, my friend.
My phone
Don't
has
go,
this
sis.
habit of
Don't
doing its
go.
own.
Avoids congestion on A104.
Okay, so there's traffic on A1104.
Clearly there is. Clearly there is.
All right, what was I?
You are.
Oh, the things that Senator Ledamo Olekina was saying,
yeah.
that he's hoping that they're going to do things differently this time. That he's hoping, and he has even told his colleagues that, this time let's go ahead and unearth the actual beneficiaries. Let's follow the money and find out who is it that procured, who is it that supplied, where did the supplier purchase from, was all the tax paid to the government as required, was this followed, did it follow procedure, and all those things that he's saying. And he's finished by saying, pray for us,
There's
because
something.
he knows.
It requires a little more than just due diligence by the Senate. Divine intervention may be necessary.
Yeah.
Or that, pray for us that we'll be protected, because he also knows that once you start digging a little bit under the surface, that it's likely that there could be some kind of threat made to your life.
But what I find of interest is this. When you talk about government procurement, there is a process they call pre-qualification. Not of those who want to procure, but of those you procure from. Meaning, if you want to find out the people who you can procure from, it isn't difficult, because the government, unless this has changed drastically, they do have entities that it is understood you can procure certain things from, because they are known entities, their capacities are known, etc., etc. But the issue isn't there really, is it? No. The issue is in the people we give the orders to actually purchase. That is where the issue is. And that's why KEMSA comes in, because KEMSA is such an agency. What to buy, not a problem, we know.
It's not the issue.
Where to buy from, we know, not even a problem. And the problem of KEMSA is mirrored even lower when you talk about COVID and the issues of procurement in the counties. We encountered it in the articles that were written in the papers and what we have looked at in this very show. Someone is given an order. Up to that point, we're not even asking how they were given. They were given. The why they were given comes in when they are unable to supply. The why comes in when they supply something that is considered substandard. And then there's also the issue of supplies are provided, but you are not told who was given or where they got it from.
Yep.
Meaning, so long as any question that is asked is met with vagueness, lack of clarity, then more questions arise. And yet, it's supposed to be a fairly straightforward thing. We know what is wanted. We even know where you can get it from. And then, when you get to that point, then it gets really misty. The issues around KEMSA. What is required for procurement? Not a problem, not complicated. By the time you're being told to procure, it means we've already identified what we want. So that is not a problem. So why then does it become such a big issue? Not because of COVID. Why has it always been such a big issue?
KEMSA has for a long time been on a spotlight.
It has.
Right now, the people who've been suspended, the manager, the CEO, the procurement director, and the other manager who've been suspended, these are people who have not even lasted long in this particular organization. The CEO, Dr. Njeri, was appointed in July 2018. All right. Before that, the previous CEO had left under the same kind of a cloud of issues emerging from here, left, right, and center. And that is a man who was put under the bus, thrown under the bus. Now we are seeing another attempt at focusing our attention on KEMSA and painting this organization called KEMSA as the evil organization, and the people who are leading it, that is the top management, as the ones who are complete, the angels of the devil. What do you call the angels of the devil? Little devils. The agents of the devil. And they are the ones
I think you're referring to demons here.
the demons, right? These are the angels of the devil.
Yes.
This senior management as the demons, and these are the ones that we need to remove. Once we remove this demon, we are going to have a smooth operation in this particular organization. We forget that these demons are placed there by people who are here to control them. We forget that the people who actually end up benefiting from whatever is happening at KEMSA are the organizations that procure, organizations that are given the contracts to procure. Until you get to that point where we start talking about, so which companies are these that do business with the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency? Who are they? What's their connection? How deep are their roots in this country? Then we're just joking.
That's where it needs to go, which is why I asked the question, that you might start doing a probe into KEMSA and you will find that, which has already been in some cases alluded to now, you will find that there are others who are involved in this whole thing. So for me, even if you do a probe at KEMSA, but you're not willing to go really way deep down underneath, if you're not ready to do that, then you might as well not even do this probe, because it really doesn't matter. And again, like you said, the problems that are at KEMSA were not as a result of COVID. They were there years ago. We've even heard that the donor organizations who says if you don't get your act together, we're probably not going to be able to help in the future. It's not about COVID. It's not necessarily about COVID. It's even things to do with malaria drugs, HIV drugs, across the board. Funding, or rather distributing to the counties being able to procure for themselves. It goes way beyond COVID. But I think that it's being used as a smokescreen. And if you're not ready to go beneath the surface to find out what is really going on, this probe is just going to get you information that would not be either here or there.
Given the quantities involved and the amounts involved, tenders of this nature tend to fall under the category of what you would call an open tender. Meaning, it is known those who want to procure.
Yep.
Whether it's an open, it's local, whether it's international, it is known. And all the details that form the subject of our discussion here are actually provided. It's not even a subject of investigation. It should be in the public domain. After all, you are tendering for procurement for a public entity. Is it not?
Yes.
Yes. But again, there's a little confusion here. You're not clear as to even what sort of tender took place, the form, the manner. You're not even very sure about the process that was taken. And yet, all these things are laid down. What must be done, at what time, how you should do it, what should follow. And even when the tenders are awarded, there's a process by which these things should be awarded. So these are things that ought to be in the public domain. That we are investigating, two things come to mind. One, it isn't as public as we may think, or what was supposed to be public clearly turned out not to be public. So now we need to figure out why it is this happened the way it did. And then, number two, there is the issue of the money involved. Did we spend what we should have spent, and was it spent on the items that we were supposed to be spent on? And did these items actually cost what they were supposed to cost? Now, this doesn't just end with the KEMSA. This is something that has dogged the Ministry of Health and other ministries for the longest time.
It just so happens that because people's ears were more tuned to these realities, because of the fact that everybody was almost at a standstill because of what COVID itself presented, that suddenly everybody seems to be a little bit more fine-tuned to hearing what is going on. But yes, I do agree. The minute that you make it public by making it known that we are getting these funds for 1, 2, 3, guess what? You have to make every line, every detail on what you spent just as public. The minute that you tell people, yes, well, you know, we're procuring for this amount, or we're tendering for these particular supplies, and this is how much we're going to spend, then it should be, like you say, public knowledge.
Yeah.
It should be out there in the open. Such a probe, for example, to the details that should actually then not be absolutely necessary, because that information should be somewhere where you should be able to go and get it and say, actually, look, this is what we spent. 5 million went to this, and you can see that that is actually where it went. The reason why there is this probe is because that detail is not being made clear, and room has been left for speculation, because somebody has asked the questions why, where, whom, what, when, and those questions cannot be answered, and then the probe comes into being.
Question that comes to mind is, what then are government tenders used for? Because government tenders seem to be a tool. Why do I say it's a tool? It's like a tool for rewarding people who those in power feel they can reward. You are rewarded by being given a tender. And you here means you and whatever other entities you are associated with who purport that they can actually supply. Again, if what was required for procurement was actually procured, these things wouldn't even be an issue. Because you talk and you say, but were they provided? Yes. Was the price reasonable? Yes. So you'd be quibbling about how this person was chosen, but the argument would be weak. But ours, every point of this discussion is problematic.
What? Okay. What?
Okay. Words.
Why is it so difficult to pinpoint the individuals or the companies or organizations who are involved in this and bring them out into the open? Why is it so difficult?
It isn't difficult.
So why is it not done? This thing that the senator spoke about, parading people out in the open and then saying, you know what, this is actually what happened, this is what cannot be accounted for, and this was the individual who was responsible. Why isn't it done? Why isn't it done? When in other countries, the whiff, just the whiff, you're out, you can smell the aroma, the whiff of corruption will make an individual resign because they don't want that tint on their image at all. Let me move so that you can do your own investigation or at least find out what was going on. But here people hang on to it as though for dear life. Why is it so difficult to bring these things out into the open, to make an explanation, to have an understanding?
But Nduh, you should ask the question, if you want to really expand this question and move outside Kenya, you should ask yourself, how is it then that we have political leaders who are in the position of presidents? How is it that they're so out of touch with the reality of their people? And I'm not talking about the present. Even look at the past. You are ruling a country and it's clear your people don't particularly like you. And this is shown by the way they keep demonstrating. And then you have a situation where it is clear that the military also don't like you very much. The person doesn't leave the country, they're still there. So you wonder. On. Yes, hanging on. There are those who argue it's power. Whatever the reasons, you must understand that what in my mind we seem to be dealing with is not corruption. Corruption is what the manifestation of all these things, but we're dealing with a system that seems to have been set in place to benefit certain people.
Yeah.
Whether they want to bring you into that cabal, whether they want to reward you for things you have done, whatever the reason, but it that is what its purpose is. Its purpose is not what it is stated as.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And I think you're spot on there, City. I mean, it's about a system that is here to benefit a few people. And that's why we as Kenyans ought to make sure that we are staying on guard. Because we are going to be confused with the whole issue of, oh, let's parade KEMSA, let's talk about KEMSA, or, now KEMSA is the only one that supplies medicine across the country, as if that's a bad thing, or, now KEMSA is the one that did this and the other, and these are the managers who are in charge, and we forget that whole issue. And I keep taking us back. When you look at the Ministry of Health, people have talked about the corruption at the Ministry of Health for a long time.
Very long time.
You will even hear it being mentioned casually about companies that have operated in the Ministry of Health for a long time. That they are the ones that know what medicine is required in the country. They're the ones that supply the medicine in the country. Sometimes it's even expired. They force that they supply an excess of what we require. They're the ones that supply the equipment that we need in this country. And these companies are well known, not just the companies, the individuals behind the companies are well known because they'll even keep registering new companies here and there. Even now with this COVID issue, we hear that there are small companies that were registered a week prior to the winning, being awarded a tender. But if you look back, you may find that these are the same people who have been running this ministry behind the scenes for a long time. If you look at the issues in the Ministry of Health, we never talk about the personalities involved. We always talk about the public officers involved. We always talk about the principal secretary, the cabinet secretary, change the PS, change the CS, and we leave the main people, the kingpins, behind. Talk about the NYS scandal. Just the other day I was reminding you. NYS 1, there were individuals, private organizations and private individuals who were named and who were paraded in court. NYS 2, the same. Private individuals who won the tenders are paraded in court. Have you ever heard in the Ministry of Health private individuals being paraded in court in association with scam at the health ministry, unless those small ones who are basically just conning people who are claiming that they can help you to win a tender, and those are taken to court first. But the ones who actually do the actual business in the Ministry of Health, no. It's the same kind of thing that if we don't watch here, we are going to see KEMSA. Let's reorganize KEMSA. Let's even remove the power of KEMSA to supply the medicine in this country. Let's create another entity, but the individuals will still be there.
And the rot continues.
The rot continues because Kenya must buy medicine, because Kenya must buy medical equipment, because that has to continue. Whatever entity you bring in, the person is just there twiddling in something and saying, in fact, he's the one who's even advising. Let's
have a probe.
Let's have a probe. Let's create another entity. Let's change this law. Let's say that counties can now procure directly. Already, he has his tentacles in those counties, he or she.
And it seems to be understood that any government procurement, I'm talking about county as well as national government, it seems to be understood what its purpose is. The provision of what it's supposed to supply is a secondary factor. The primary factor is it's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool.
It's a mint.
Yes, it's a tool. And you see, I have to start thinking now, because we have an election with every passing month, the time for the election gets shorter and shorter. Mm-hmm. I have to start thinking of people beginning to prepare war chests. And when they prepare war chests, the source of money has to be government. And how do you do this? You ensure that when a God-given opportunity like COVID presents itself, I say God-given for them because COVID has to be dealt with.
Yes.
Provisions have to be made. Procurements have to be made.
And money then has to be
money has to be spent. It has to be found to be spent. Yes. This is even better than building roads. Because roads take time.
Yep.
Over a long period of time.
This is an emergency.
It's an emergency, and you can justify the speed with which you move and the speed with which you expend money.
Yep.
You can justify it. So anything that you may think of that would fit into the agenda or the menu that people have within those circles, COVID has provided it.
I listened to us say this, I mean, just stepping out of my being for a moment and hovering above this conversation, and I realized that those who might be listening might think, you know what, we're talking about something that sounds like it's made for the movies. But this is actually something that's happening in this country today.
As we speak.
As we speak, right? And so when you talk about medical workers who go on strike because certain things have not been provided for them, we talk about doctors who then did not receive their insurance. We then speak about people who are less vulnerable or quite vulnerable in this country not being able to receive what they should receive with the regularity that they should receive it because that money just didn't get to their hands, or proper plans being put in place because the money has been diverted for something else. You would think it was something that was out of reality, but it is right here, clear, present danger. It's not even something that's coming, it's something that is here now. It's something that's here now. And unfortunately, we've seen something like this. This would not be the first time that an organization like KEMSA has been used for a smokescreen for something else that is going on. And I really do think, and I would plead and implore that Kenyans actually need to open their eyes, and beyond opening their eyes, now begin to engage your voices, engage your mind, engage the opportunities that you have to speak out about things like this and say that you are aware. Because for the longest time, these entities that we're talking about have thrived on the reality that Kenyans are not aware of what's happening. And because they're not aware, then they're unlikely to speak up, and they have thrived on that. And I'm telling you, the thing that would be able to slowly kill this empire, these cabals that we see, these individuals that you're talking about who are able to gain, would be breaking that belief down to the grain.
We'll be going
to say
after
that we
them.
are absolutely. Well, look here. How do you go after them? What did Senator say just a few minutes ago? What did he say? The awareness that Kenyans have now of the things that are going on is piling a lot of pressure on them to be able to do something about this. If people don't speak up, if people don't voice their awareness of what is going on, it's going to be very difficult to deal with things like this. If people don't know that you're aware that you're aware of individuals.
But is it really piling pressure, or is the pressure being piled upon by 2022?
There's that as well. There's manipulated pressure, which is also just being, for example, right now, if you went to social media, you'll see the conversation is around, in this particular case, you'll find the conversations around KEMSA and around the suspended officers, and therefore now we should see them in court and we should see them in jail. And then the other conversation that had started taking place about trying to identify these personalities behind the entire scam dies off.
But what do they normally feed
You
off
actually
of,
do
Eric?
not hear that conversation continuing.
Because
who
usually,
are these organizations and who are these personalities? Who are the ones who are pulling the strings behind?
Exactly. Because normally, like I said, they would thrive off of this. That you would gobble up this whole that it would be KEMSA. Let's see some people go to court, let them go to jail, and then that drama fizzles out and it's done. But now that the conversation is being had around, it can't just be these guys. There's got to be something or someone behind these operations that you see in the foreground. There's got to be something else going on. And when you begin to pick and prod at that, is by being aware and speaking out about it.
What is tragic in this country is this. The narrative surrounding any legal issue, and which concludes in our courts, and even with the finalization of someone going to jail, it isn't that due process has been followed. No, the narrative tends to be, this is a person who did not play the game as it should be played. It is understood that when you're in this position, there's certain things you must do, and certain a portion that proceed must head in a certain direction, and you probably diverted it to another direction. So you must suffer. So what you're suffering from is not what you did.
It's what you did not do.
Yes.
In some cases also, it's what you did, and then you're just the scapegoat. You've just been put up there, so you're the one who did this, you're the one who did it. It's your signature anyway, so you go. And you leave the cabal behind. They appoint a new person, come in, use them, and throw them under the bus again. It's a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 25 minutes past 8 o'clock. Let's take a quick break on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly. We want to take a look at the weather and traffic. What's happening on the roads? We'd like to know.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's drizzling in most parts of the city of Nairobi at 14 degrees. We'll see a high of 22 today, and that drizzle is likely to continue throughout the day with lows of 13. It's also light rain showers in Njeri at 14 degrees, highs of 20 and lows of 13. Partly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Let's take a look into Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 19 with thunderstorms forecasted for later. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 19, likely to be a wet afternoon. There'll be thunderstorms in Kakamega later with highs of 23 and lows of 15, currently mostly cloudy conditions at 16 degrees. In Mombasa, it's partly cloudy at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 23. We'll take a look then into Malindi, where it's partly cloudy at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 23 with the odd shower in the afternoon. All right, let's step out of Kenya into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 18 and showers expected later on. In Dar es Salaam today, it's partly cloudy at 24, highs of 30 and lows of 21, and there is a chance of a shower later. Let's take a look then into Johannesburg, where it's mostly sunny at 10 degrees, the warmest day in at least a week, highs of 23 and lows of 19, and those sunny conditions will continue through the day. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's partly cloudy. Actually, no, it's mostly cloudy at 24 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23, with a chance of rain later on.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so it's quite foggy in most parts of the city today. We're looking at Thika Road, we're looking at Mombasa Road and Gong Road, where the fog is actually quite low today. It is a misty Monday, as some of you are saying today. The Southern Bypass, you need to have your fog lights on because it's very difficult to see the car that's just in front of you. So we're asking that you approach with caution. We've had a couple of accidents today, 2 on Thika Road, 1 fatal one on Mombasa Road. So guys, we need to be extremely careful. All right, on Jogo Road getting into the CBD, it looks like it's okay. If you're on the Nairobi-Nakuru highway, make sure your wipers are working and be safe, folks, because yes, it is low and there's a bumper-to-bumper situation outside of Nakuru for a few kilometers, guys. So let us know where you might be stuck. We can share where it isn't, and also offer an alternate route, Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This is a story that was published also yesterday. The WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus was answering to reporters on Friday in Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland, and he said he was talking about those who are involved in stealing money that's meant to be helping people. He says corruption in the procurement of COVID-19 PPEs is unacceptable, and he likened it to murder. And it's obvious. If health workers work without PPEs, we are risking their lives, and that also risks the lives of the people that they serve. It's criminal, it's murder, it has to stop. We have seen that in this country. Medical workers have downed their tools in various parts of the country. And what is their main complaint? We do not have PPEs. Those that are saying that they have PPEs are told, well, you're working with one surgical mask, you're given one surgical mask per week. A surgical mask per week. So they're going into their own pockets to actually buy the PPEs as basic as masks. And yet billions of shillings have been given to this country through the Ministry of Health, through the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency to provide such. And it hasn't happened. And now there's hue and cry, and there's a lot of course, public outcry, justified, and we are seeing investigations by various arms of government, including the Senate, on what exactly happened. How was this procurement done? Where was the money? What we have read so far is, something as simple as the surgical mask was being supplied at some exorbitant price because of the disruption in the global supply chain, which, yes, we understand, and we've heard this from other quarters as well. Even the private sector has even said, yes, the supply chain was seriously disrupted, and therefore things became expensive.
Has it remained disrupted?
That's a question that we keep asking ourselves, and also asking ourselves, the companies that were supplying these, were they supplying directly from, this is how much I've bought it from, for I've put a markup of $1, and therefore I'm selling it to you, Kemsa, at $1 because I'm in business. Or have you put a 100% markup?
And
Is
Derek-
that acceptable? Is that
And
justifiable?
Derek, when we hear of these stories, you still hear of many countries that are upping their testing, say for instance.
Yes.
And they talk about there being a problem with the supplies, but they still continue. Ours, we talk about it and it grinds to a halt. We don't even seem to move with our testing.
Yep.
So where do these people get their test kits from, and where? Look, I mean, talking like an African, can we just ask them where they buy their test kits so that we can also buy from the same source?
Same guys.
Yes, because
they are
our
getting
people, the people we buy from, seem not to be able to supply.
South Africans are able to actually do that, and they have tested more than 1 million test samples. How
Yes.
many millions? Several millions.
Yes,
We are at how many now? 400,000 or less.
Yeah.
it's a dismal number.
Total tests so far in this country. We are still operating
We
at less than
have
half
not
a million.
No, we have not reached half a
tests.
million.
No, we've not reached 500,000. We are way under half a million.
Total number of samples tested so far.
You don't want to say that out loud, do you?
No.
Say it.
Let's just say 284,000.
Yes, we're not even at 300. Because we can't get test kits.
Because we can't get test kits. Because we can't get reagents. Because we cannot get...
And last week we were told that this week that will change.
But the money has been spent, by the way.
The money has been
But
spent.
they said
yes.
they're coming this week.
The money has been spent. What is it that we need to do as people? You know, this is a week where we are celebrating the promulgation of our new constitution, which gave the citizens much more power and authority than everybody else. What is it that we, the people, can do to ensure that we get to the bottom of this particular scandal once and for all? We have seen other scandals. We saw the Goldenberg scandal. There was a public inquiry. A judicial commission of inquiry was set up. It came up with a report. That report said these people are culpable. That report recommended further investigations against certain individuals. Those individuals are still occupying public office today. Investigation, shauri yako. Another public inquiry. All these public inquiries you've seen. That is one. Even simple things like the murder of Dr. Robert Okoh. We saw public inquiry. Was that case ever closed? No, it wasn't. Public inquiry, plane crash that killed Professor George Saitoti. Public inquest into the death of Professor Saitoti. Was it ever resolved?
So
do we
you
know what
blame-
happened?
Do you blame
No.
Kenyans then when they hear public inquiry or public whatever and they throw their hands up and they say, this one is just going to end in silence?
It's
Do
a
you blame them?
whitewashing tool. It's just a way of just saying, okay, all right, so yeah, people can watch, they can get entertained, they can see that, and then a report will be authored.
And
a
we can
report
be
will be
seen
handed
to be
over.
working.
Yes. TJRC, public, a report is sitting there. This time, we are talking about billions of shillings that have been spent on fighting COVID-19. We are talking about 548 people who have died so far in this country of COVID-19. You can say, oh, it's a small number. It's a small number to who?
One
one.
death
These are
is too many.
548 people who have died.
One death is too many.
How many of them are doctors? We have even heard, the doctors have told us, a doctor in Wajir died. This is an old man who is seriously experienced. Died. Why? Because he could not access oxygen in Wajir Hospital. Died. And you're telling us...
KEMSA is the problem. That's what we're being told. But that's what it is, that KEMSA is actually the problem. So this is the problem. You look at COVID in its in its entirety, and it has then been said that, okay, the problems that we are facing with corruption and mismanagement of funds and whatever else is being reduced to KEMSA. And it's taking your attention away from what the real problem is. And I'm saying that is what Kenyans need to be looking at. And I hear your question, because then what is it beyond speaking and having conversations about this that people actually need to do? Kenyans don't have the machinery to fight this. But one thing you do still have is your voice. We've seen many and heard of many examples of countries where individuals have used their voice over and over again, and it has actually yielded results because they've been consistent in their efforts to make sure that it is out in the open, that it is in the public arena, that they are aware of what's going on, and they're not going to sit and allow it to continue that way for as long as they're alive, because they want to see essentially the salvation, quote unquote, of their country. of them as individuals. Because we talk about this being likened to death, whereby you can't provide a PPE. And in this, we're not talking about ability. We're talking about will. Isn't it so sad that people have to die because somebody's making a decision to line their pockets as opposed to making a decision where people could live? Isn't it so sad that somebody's making a decision to line their pockets, and so people who are less vulnerable in the country then cannot get the daily food that they need on a daily basis?
You know, the thing about impunity is it somehow convinces those who use it to do what they're doing to think that a day of reckoning will never come. That they're bulletproof. That whatever else happens elsewhere is beyond them. It'll never happen to them. How very false that is. Because everyone whose story we read about, leaders whose stories we read about, had that same thought pattern. Right now around the world, there's a country called Belarus. They're having serious issues with elections. There's a president there who seems determined to hold on to power. His countrymen and women seem to have a different idea about it. Should we say they are at variance with him in that particular thought process? Now, we are at variance with our government here on a simple matter of simply fulfilling the mandate that they have as the government. A simple mandate. Make sure that your citizens are well looked after. Nothing extravagant, nothing flowery, basics. That they have food, the health needs are taken care of, and basic needs like the education of the children are also taken care of in a manner that is safe given the times in which we live in. And they keep failing this test over and over and over and over and over. Over.
But what is it?
When you fail an exam, what do you do?
So
Do you repeat?
You recite the
you
exam.
resit the exam.
Okay, when you resit and you fail again.
They tell you it's okay. Perhaps you need to
You're
look at something else.
No.
You're discontinued.
You should be discontinued. Now, you've mentioned this in economies where people are sensitive to their responsibility, they discontinue themselves. They say, no, I will step aside.
Yeah.
Ours dig in.
Even further.
No, they dig in. Every time you think you've heard of a scandal of some enormity, another one comes up to the point where you're actually numbed. Because you think, okay.
It couldn't get worse than that.
And
then it
yes,
actually
it
does
it
get worse
does,
than
it
that.
does.
Yeah.
And so you ask yourself, will we really ever be
Get out
able
of
to
this.
get out from under this? Will we ever? Because the very people who you think ought to, or the people who make the decisions that would make these things possible, are the people involved.
Let's call for callers to actually join this conversation on 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Our question this morning is, how can we Kenyans finally get rid of the mafioso in Mafia House? How is it that we can finally get rid of the mafioso in Mafia House? Because these mafioso in Mafia House are clearly the ones that are spreading their tentacles all over. This time, we're talking about people dying, and people die all the time because of the kind of nonsense that we've seen. Supply of expired drugs, not adequate supply of drugs, proper mismanagement.
Yes.
This one is
Proper
proper. This one is
mismanagement
proper
of-
mismanagement.
Oh, by the way, it's
Oh,
a
it
health
is
problem.
proper mismanagement.
This is where we are. And there's a cabal that runs this from Mafia House. Yet we keep seeing, a high rotation of CEOs in these organizations. And we come from one. We come from the CEO of the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. Yes, we will get rid of Dr. Jonah Manjari. Dr. Jonah Manjari, I was looking up his story. He was appointed in July 2018 to be the CEO of KEMSA. 2 years in office. Obviously, now he is going to face the music. Let's just say. So, Dr. Jonah Manjari, your name is going to be dragged through the mud and out. What was he doing before? This is the first time that we saw a medical doctor actually heading the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. Before this, he was the CEC in charge of health in Nakuru County. And this was just for those 2 years, about a year, between 2017 and 2018, when he was appointed by the governor, Lee Kinyanjui. Before that, he had served for 5 years as the CEC in charge of health in Kiambu County. When you talk about, William Kabogo and the work William Kabogo was doing in healthcare in Kiambu, the man on the ground was this gentleman, Jonah Manjari. Before that, Jonah Manjari was the head of the Thika Level 5 hospital. So he's somebody who brings in his own experience and he has managed.
Somehow
Then
he seemed to have succeeded in those other posts.
he gets to KEMSA and
It becomes flat-bellied.
yes.
What
That's why
happened?
I'm completely convinced that the issue is not really necessarily the people, the personalities at the helm of the organization.
system.
Actually, in everything you've mentioned so far, required him managing
A
health.
system.
Yes. And where I'm going with this, managing camps ought to be simpler,
Yeah.
because all you're doing is making sure that the provisions are procured and they get to where they're supposed to go.
And especially just looking at somebody who has worked as CEC for 2 counties, therefore understands the kind of work that KEMSA
And
does
even understands
in
the
supplying
need.
and the
Yes,
need.
yes.
And being a head of a hospital, understands the need. And coming there, that is easy peasy. But then you want to tell me that suddenly this person is unable? I don't buy it. I see other things. Jeremiah calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Jeremiah.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome to the Situation Room. What's your view? What should we do to deal with the mafioso at Mafia House?
Okay, my take is only two. Is that we need to have a very strong civil society,
Right?
and then the newspapers or the reporters, we need to have a more independent, because it seems if for the last few months you've seen the reporting, especially the headlines. It's like the independence we are losing the independence, which is because there's that independent nature of the reporting which we need to have as a country, and a very strong civil society, because the politicians will always be playing politics.
So it's too much political. So we need stronger voices coming from the civil society
yes.
and the fourth estate.
Yes, and civil society should also be strong.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Good points.
Thank you very much.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. What is it that we need to do to finally slay this dragon that has even laid eggs and hatched them at Mafia House? And something needs to happen. Something needs to be done about this. What is it that needs to happen for us to deal with this? Nduh Okoh, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well,
morning.
thank
Very
you.
well,
Nduh,
thank
how
you.
are you?
Very well. Say hello to your co-hosts.
Good morning, Mr. Court. How are you?
His co-host say hello to you as well.
Thank you very much. I hope you guys have been keeping safe with this COVID-19.
We are.
are.
We are keeping
And
safe.
yourself?
Yes, trying to live with the new normal.
Indeed, we must. Dr. Okoh, this
Yes.
the unfolding drama surrounding the misappropriation of funds meant for COVID-19. What's your view on this?
Well, first of all, we shouldn't really be surprised that in our country, theft of public money has been normalized. And this is something that, all Kenyans know. And until really we start punishing people severely, for example, as we had proposed even in the Punguza Mizigo, this thing is not going to go away. In fact, this is probably the worst thing that ever happened to our country, because the thieving, the stealing of public funds starts from the people in charge of government. If you look at all the scandals, there is no way, for example, an hairdresser could walk into a government parastatal called NYS and walk away with billions. Or somebody walks into the Ministry of Health or KEMSA and walk away with billions. It has a blessing from the political leadership of the country today. And especially when relatives or people in charge of the country are themselves implicated. This corruption will not go away until we actually remove this cancerous thing. The bad political leadership, the tribal political leadership that seems to justify all the bad things that happen in our country. And it's a shame. I mean, like some people have said, this is actually akin to murder, mass murder. When you steal money meant for people struggling with their lives, trying to save their lives, COVID-19,
Yep.
you are worse than a mass murderer.
That's
I mean,
true.
he actually wasn't a murderer.
Ekuru, I have to
kill-
ask though, how because we're asking the question, we can talk about it. I mean, Kenyans are becoming more and more aware of what is going on, right? What exactly needs to be done? I mean, because we can talk about it and keep talking about it and make, the powers that be aware that Kenyans know what's happening. But what is the next thing then that needs to happen to do what you've said exactly, get the cancer out of the system?
So first of all, the first thing that we need to do, you see, leadership is everything. In any country, if you don't have the right kind of stewardship, if you don't interrogate the people we put in charge of our institutions, then we are not addressing the problems we are talking of. We had proposed, for example, that we have to continuously use the Auditor General report as the first piece of evidence, expert evidence, that must be tabled in a court of law. Let's use it as a means of beginning to prosecute. You see, the conspiracy in Kenya today is that even when the auditor makes findings that so-and-so, we have given you money to build a bridge or to build a school, you have not accounted for it. That report has never been tabled in a court of law to say, this is the evidence. You see what the parliamentarians do? They start calling it audit queries.
Yeah.
An audit report, once it has been written and been signed, it has actually asked findings. And based upon those findings, people must be prosecuted to begin with. Secondly, people must be told to step out of public office. And we propose this even in our second phase of Punguza Mizigo, that why is in the ODPP, AGI, why is he not grabbing a copy of the audit report, table it before a court of law, and then put the auditor himself in the dock and say you are an expert. You went and audited XYZ for 6 months. What did you find out? Let me tell you, it does not even need a whole day to actually pin someone who is in charge of public money. We have also proposed to begin to end this corruption. Let's now make governors. We start with governors. We make governors the chief accounting officer of county funds. Right now, governors are getting away with this because they're saying they are not the ones who sign these checks.
Yep.
We have made all these proposals, and this is the only way we can begin to pin people down. But we have also said, challenge Kenyans. If people who have got questionable characters get themselves into leadership, and they start doing the kind of things that we are doing, why should we be complaining? So it also behoves us as Kenyans. Are we making the right choices in this? Are we interrogating people's ideas? Otherwise, we can keep on lamenting, crying for a long time. Like now, I mean, can you imagine? I find it ridiculous. Everybody agrees Jubilee government is a failed government, including the president. But you can see the political narrative that Ruto is the guy to beat in 2022. How can somebody who is deputizing a corrupt regime be the best person to lead this country?
Be the alternative, indeed.
I honestly think Kenyans need to be psychoanalyzed. There's something fundamentally wrong with us. And therefore we are not even questioning what is our own well-being. Do we even love ourselves as a country anymore? And this is, for me, the bigger conversation that really this country must have going forward.
We should have
Parliament.
this.
Parliament is a failed institution. In fact, I wonder, was there even any point of us electing senators and MPs if Uhuru and Raila can control Parliament? Either of them should decide either to be, one should be the Senate, the other should be National Assembly. This is exactly...
And they run it.
And they run it.
Dr. Okoh, we thank you very much for your contribution. We'll invite you, actually, so we can have this conversation. This week, we shall be celebrating the promulgation of a new constitution. You were there at the helm of the committee of experts. So we'll have a conversation with you regarding this and what the constitution has achieved for us so far.
I look forward to having that conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to Mombasa and speak to Rosina in Mombasa. Good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
Good morning.
Thank you for that conversation, but I've joined in late.
Right.
But for me, I think it is as Kenyans, as the people, to kind of uzalendo.
Mm-hmm.
I think uzalendo huko. If we as the people, we should know that we have the power. I don't think we can have leaders who are corrupt, because we know what we want.
When we have poor leadership, it's a reflection of poor patriotism by the citizens.
Yes. We don't have values of life. Because the things which have passed to the younger generation,
Yep.
it's all about money. I have my young sons around 13 to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about football so that they can have more money. And you see what is going around the society. It's about money. Don't we have values to see that the person who anachoma something, he's earning his rightful thing.
True. It's about values as well.
And then another thing, I've seen Mombasa Cement doing a good thing, but are we bringing our people to be beggars? Can we not? If you want to assist someone, tell him to sweep and then you give him something. We have to have values.
Thank you, Rosina.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very
my
much.
stand.
Eric Odongo in Karen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My contribution is this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when our ladies were getting pregnant? I mean, the school kid.
Mm-hmm.
The president says that the chiefs should be responsible if any girl gets pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same case. The president is responsible when all these cartels are masquerading and stealing our money. He is responsible. Let us not call individuals that it is these people, it is this manager. These are huge amount of money. For example, I'm having a house. I'm having a family.
Mm-hmm.
If something happened in my house, it is me. It is not my daughter Howie or my son Goodluck. It is me. It is me to be responsible, not my daughter. So the president should be responsible. They know these people.
Right.
Yeah, so let us not hide behind of small people, like they normally said, the big fish. Let us not sacrifice the omenas and we have muta, the big fish.
The big fish
So
is
I
still
think
in the lake.
I think
Thank
the
you.
president and the other guys know these people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. He's basically saying the buck stops right there on the doors of the president.
The person who
It's the
said
same thing that Dr. Nduh Okoh is saying. It starts from the leadership. There is absolutely no way somebody can go and maneuver an engineer to be able to win a multi-billion shilling tender in government if you're not very well connected.
The fish rots from the head. It's very simple. You can't. It's not possible for you to have a system that's rotten through and through, and it started from the bottom, or that it starts from the bottom.
Unless the fish has two heads.
Unless the fish has two heads and it has rotted from a smaller other head somewhere else. But it starts from the very top. Like you said, huge amounts of money like that need some serious connections. Very improbable that such things would go through without the nerve center knowing of what's going on. Very improbable. Improbable.
I think we actually don't have a problem with corruption as a country.
It's not a problem.
No. Neither do we have a problem with impunity. We only have a problem if it's people we don't align ourselves to and people we do not.
So people we don't like.
We don't.
When those are the ones who are benefiting.
Those are the thieves.
Oh, yeah.
If
it
the
is
same,
you who
if-
is on the
if-
same line as them.
Yes, and if people we approve of do the same thing, then they're not stealing. We find
They're
some
in
other
business.
we
They're
find
in
some other adjective to explain what it is that they're doing. We don't seem to, because if we really saw corruption for what it is and understood the harm that it does, and we really were against it, we would not respond to it the way we do. What we do is hypocritically talk about it because we're all supposed to, the majority of us are supposed to be Christians, so there are certain Christian values that we must express in public.
We must make noise.
Yes, to show that we don't support corruption, we don't support these wrong things. But when presented with the wrong things, we will participate heartily.
Do we have corruption is not our problem.
Our problem is duplicity. We are a
We're just
two-faced
jealous.
group of people who form the population of this country we call Kenya. We say this and what we believe is a complete opposite. And so even as we ourselves are having this discussion about corruption, the truth is it will not come to an end. If anything, it will just increase. And the reason why it becomes more brazen is because more and more the positive thing is we are becoming less hypocritical. We are becoming more realistic. And the realism is the really terrible thing in that we are corrupt and we should continue being corrupt because that's what we're doing.
Let's take a break on that note and say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. We'd like to thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room, we have CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. And the show continues on Spice FM, where we're broadcasting in Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Njeri, and Malindi 97.7. Good morning.
Spice FM. Njeri.
All right, let's talk about the Kenya Ports Authority's information portal, Captain Cargo. We're looking at the vessel clearing and handling at the port of, at any port.
Yeah.
Where the vessel here refers to the ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vessel here is a ship.
Ship as in this thing that
Ship
plies
ship,
the waters.
Not sheep, goat.
Not, aha. All right.
There's a friend of ours who was giving us this example of what they were being told in school, right?
Not ship.
When the teacher comes and tells you, write about the sheep. And the student asks, teacher, sheep or sheep goat? So you're talking about sheep.
Okay, so, okay.
All right. Not sheep, not sheep.
Not sheep, man.
Not sheep, man. Ship.
But ship merely.
Ship belly. All right. Vessel handling.
Okay. So, we know that you already got your notification, right? And your vessel is arriving. So what happens after that is the shipping agent lodges an IAR, which is an impending arrival notice. So what I like about this is that when it leaves, when it's arriving, everybody who is in this process has the documentation that basically is able to tick off for you to say, okay, go ahead. So your shipping agent lodges this document so that everybody else who is now involved in this process has it. Okay. Then the vessel confirms the arrival via VHF telephone, radio telephone. Okay. And this is sent to the vessel traffic system. There's that word again. To the KPA harbor master. So everybody is unaware of what's going on and the process is quite seamless. Okay. And the KPA pilot boards the vessel for safe navigation to the allocated berth in the harbor. So everybody's going along because of documentation that has been received before time, and then this can be made quite smooth.
Okay.
And we'll go on and look at the other details of how this all happens.
Yep. So all this information you can find on this portal. This is www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, and cargo is spelled Kargo. You can find all that information there. Coming to the top of the hour, and we are asking whether you know any other translation or any other version of today's proverb, which is,
a child can play with its mother's breasts, but not his father's testicles.
Okay. Keep it right here. The conversation continues right here on Spice FM. Remember, we are live streaming the show as well on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can also find us on YouTube, where we live stream the show every morning. Spice FM KE on YouTube as well, and as well as Twitter, Spice FM KE. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's now coming up to 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay,
Traffic.
so how did the roads look like this morning? Right about now, we still have problems on Thika Road. We know that the construction is taking place and is likely to end tomorrow. And we say likely because you can be sure. So till 4:30 in the morning from 9:30 tonight. and that footbridge is being worked on. Looking at other parts, Mombasa Road is moving very slowly today until you get to around the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. It's a foggy day, guys, so I'm really going to implore you to be as careful as you can be, because visibility is actually quite low in several parts of the country, not just in the city. Okay, so where else? It looks also like coming out of Kiambu Road and joining with Thika Road, there was already an accident today at the Muthaiga underpass, so you need to be careful with that as well, guys. So most of the time, as we're seeing most of the roads, some traffic, so take it easy. We'll let you know what it looks like in about half hour or so when we're out of traffic hour. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. We want to keep it moving as much as we can this misty Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
9 o'clock, the conversation continues, and this is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's talk about corruption now and our perception of corruption. You know, C.T. Muga said that seems as if we don't have a problem with corruption or impunity in this country. The perception that we have of corruption is it's bad when it's somebody else. It's okay when it's our neighbor or our relative, or better yet, when we are directly involved. Otherwise, what is it about corruption? If you get to know somebody and you can see clearly this person was not doing well a couple of months ago, and suddenly you hear, I know somebody who knows somebody in KEMSA, and therefore these PPEs, these masks. Hey, this guy, he
got a contract for 4 billion.
Yeah, supplied. Now you want to be their friend. When they invite you to go and do their housewarming, because they'll soon, very, very, very soon, build a new home in a leafy suburb, and they'll invite you for housewarming, you want to be first on the line to arrive there. In fact, you'll feel so honored and privileged that you've been invited. You've been considered a close friend. So is it about our perception of, is it that we don't understand what?
No, I think there is a disconnect between what corruption can actually cause in terms of detriment and the reality of the same. I think it's not about a misunderstanding, because I think if you sat everybody down, it's very clear in people's minds that, it's stealing, okay, it's not right, it's thievery of public funds, it shouldn't be done. But the effects of corruption is what I think that a lot of people have not come into reality with, or come to grips with, come to terms with. The effects of this, or rather, the benefits in the absence of corruption, in terms of what it could do for any country, has not been realized or understood. Because if you realize
the benefits of corruption,
the benefits of the absence of corruption. If you realize what money stolen in different pockets, 21 billion, 900 million, whatever. If you realize what it could actually do for the country that would stop people complaining about certain things over and over and over again, if you realize what those monies stolen could actually do for your country, if you realized how far in terms of the development index it could actually raise your country, I think perhaps then the perception, or at least the attitude towards it, would change. But I don't think people have come to grips with the fact that it's not really just stealing. It goes beyond
big
that.
a picture, Nduh.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's the problem. Because it's too big a picture to be painted in the mind of anybody. So you'd rather deal with this nonsense where people are just stealing money, and you say, it's just stealing money. It's actually just stealing money. But they don't come to terms with the bigger picture. That's the problem. You say it's too big a picture we're painting? That's the problem. They don't come to grips with the bigger picture of what is really happening when public funds are being stolen. And that's where the problem lies.
Is theft a mental attitude, or is it an activity of the physical body?
It's both.
It begins somewhere and manifests itself in the...
By the time it's an action,
Both.
it was a thought. It was a thought. You maybe stayed with it for some time, because you can't say that you thought about it in the morning and by the evening you were already, hashing out your plan. It was a thought. And the action, we often say, is byproduct of a thought. It manifested in your mind. You went over and over again. You had a plan. You said, okay, this is what we're going to go ahead and do.
But just think about it for a single second and ask yourself about the morality of these issues and what it is that we consider to be at the very, very foundation of our morality, our rights and wrongs, the scales that we have for them. What really do we consider to be wrong? Do we have absolute terms, or do we live in the realm and the area of the grays where relativity takes center stage in our discussion?
I think that definition of right and wrong keeps getting fluid. There are some things that we still have absolute definitions of right and wrong, right? For example, when you right. So when you talk about killing someone in a society, we all feel that is something that we abhor. That you actually killed some. It doesn't matter whether you're killing a relative, whether you're killing a passerby. It doesn't matter. Taking somebody's life within a society, within a community, we abhor. Now, when it comes to the issue of theft, now the definition of theft changes. Is it theft of going into somebody's home or property and taking something? Or is it theft in terms of being clever about it?
All right, why don't we extend the discussion? If your employer, we take the view that your employed expects you to be at work at a certain point in time, you arrive on time, they expect you within a certain hour and a certain hour before you have a break to do certain things, and you spend your time on social media. Are you stealing from your employer?
Yes.
You are defrauding your employer.
Yes.
Thank you, but do we consider it to be theft?
No.
No.
It's the same thing. Even like with death or murder of someone, you expect that when you think murder, you pick up a gun or you pick up an object to kill this person, right?
Yeah,
and
when
that's what resonates in your mind when you
direct
see
physical
that's
killing.
when you say that it's murder, right? But what did we talk about? You remove
there's negligence.
Absolutely. You remove a PPE from the hands of a medical worker. That medical worker dies as a result of having contracted this virus, right? And when I say remove, you just don't provide it. The funds that were given to you to provide this particular thing, you didn't give. Or the donation that was made was sold to somebody else so that you could make a profit. That individual dies because they came into contact with this virus. Who do you think is responsible? But we don't resonate. That's what I'm saying. We don't resonate with the bigger picture because we expect to see things on a tangible level. You want to see spilling of blood for
But
you
is
to
it really a bigger picture?
It is in some way.
It's just a picture.
But in this case where you see just stealing without realizing, or you see that...
It's a perspective. So is it here? Is it in the foreground or in the background?
You see, bigger picture is now when you extend it to a larger community, meaning this is what would happen at a macro level, right? That is what you'd call larger picture. But is this something that we can understand at a personal level?
People don't resonate with it, and that's what I'm saying the problem is.
Let me ask the question again. Is it something we can understand at a personal level? Or is it something we'd rather not understand?
There you go. It's not. I don't think it's a matter of ability. Again, I think it's a matter of will, because we don't want to come to grips or come to terms with the fact that these things that we're talking about is actually murder. That this thing that we're talking about is actually theft, grand theft. That these things that we're talking about is that you're removing food from the mouth of a child. It's akin to murder. It's crimes against humanity. That's what it is. But we would choose to label it as something else so that it seems a little bit more palatable. But that's what it is, really. When a health worker dies, when a doctor dies, when a family is walking on the street at 9 o'clock at night with her, when a woman is walking at 9 o'clock at night with her 2 children because she's been kicked out of her house because she can't afford rent, where she used to work, has lost her job and there's no buffer for her. But we don't see it like that because you think that killing somebody means taking a pistol and pointing it to their head. That's the only time it's death. That stealing is only when you break forcefully into somebody's house and take something, like Eric said, that belongs to them. That's the only time it's stealing. Anytime else, it's, it's business. We've made money.
Larger picture, theft. What if you deny people information which if they had, they would be able to make decisions that would make their lives better?
Fraud.
Actually, today, church, if I prick your conscience at every turn, it means I am constantly alerting you to simply put the rights and wrongs. If I don't, then I'm enabling your conscience to be asleep. So, by denying you that, what have I done? What have I contributed to? I've contributed to a lull in your own conscience, and I've contributed to anything that therefore follows as a result of this lull. Everything I've contributed to it. I may not think so, but broad picture speaking, I have. So am I any different from the actual perpetrator? It's very odd about our laws. If I buy something from you, Nduh, and it was stolen, what I am likely to face in terms of jail term is worse than yours if indeed you are the one who actually was the thief.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it is understood, large picture, that in the absence of someone to sell to, where would you be taking your stolen goods?
Goods too. Or if I murdered somebody in your presence and you chose to say nothing about it, you are just as culpable as me.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes. So, if we understand, it's not a complicated principle. If we understand this, then the question I would ask is, why then are we comfortable? Because we are comfortable with pretending to ourselves more than anybody else that on the one hand, we abhor corruption, we abhor things which are wrong, and yet our actions indicate that the complete opposite is actually what is true. So, what are we then as a people? Who are we? What are we?
And what do you expect?
Do we have any right to even dare complain about things which go wrong? What is the moral justification for the beef and the complaints that we have? What is it? Are we really in a position? Or are there people who are exempt, apart from toddlers and children who don't understand? If you're talking about grown-ups, is anyone really exempt? By the same token, are we helpless to the point where there's absolutely nothing you can do? You see, nothing here doesn't mean I have to go out and picket. No. Is it something that someone can actually do in their own lives? Are there values that you yourself can exemplify in your own life and ensure that you live by the things you believe in, as opposed to the duplicity that has become synonymous with us?
But can you tell you that there's nothing they can do? Can you say there's nothing they can do because they don't have the machinery or the power to actually, fight this corruption? They can just talk about it.
That's a question I am asking.
Yeah.
Are you saying the fight must be in the public arena, or can the fight begin with you as an individual?
So how do you begin that fight as an individual?
Well, I think it's in your own life, Eric. Because, for instance, would I rather be cited by a policeman and go to court, or would I rather give them money? Because it is easier to give them money. I will not go to court. It is easier. Which would I rather? And which do I justify in my mind as being the correct one? Does easy now become correct because I've justified it as such? It's a personal decision, because these personal decisions, unfortunately, even as they begin as matters that we consider small, I had a teacher who, today is a day for teachers. I had a teacher who once told us something very, very interesting. He told us that, he who can steal a shilling can steal a cow.
Because it's here.
It's opportunity.
Yeah.
At that moment, they have an opportunity to steal the shilling, so they steal the shilling. If they have an opportunity to steal a cow, you steal
They'll take
the cow.
Yes. Let's take a break and then come back and continue this conversation. 0719-012-600 is the number that you can join this conversation in. At 9:15, we want to take a look at the weather, and then we are back shortly. Good morning.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi and still a drizzle in most parts of the city. We'll see partly cloudy conditions later then with highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's cloudy in Njeri at 14 as well, highs of 19 and lows of 13 with showers expected later on. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 16 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Also thunderstorms here forecasted. Eldoret at 16 degrees is mostly cloudy this morning, highs of 19 and lows of 12, and the forecast is, yes, thunderstorms. In Kisumu it's 21 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19 with showers expected later, as is the story in Kakamega with highs of 23 and lows of 15, currently at 19 degrees and mostly cloudy. Let's take a look in Mombasa. We're at 26 degrees, it's mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 23. In Malindi, 25 degrees and partly cloudy. It'll open up later though, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Kampala, still this morning at 21 degrees, is mostly cloudy, highs of 25 with showers expected later, coming down to a low of 18. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 26 degrees. It'll open up into showers later with highs of 29 and lows of 21. Johannesburg is mostly sunny this morning and again getting warmer and warmer at 12 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 9 and mostly sunny conditions. In Lagos, it's cloudy at 24 degrees. It's going to be cloudy throughout the day, overcast, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Paris weather this morning is mostly sunny at 14 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 13. And then looking into London, it's mostly cloudy at 15 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 15. And it looks like it's going to be a rainy London Monday. And finally, for now, in New York, getting into Monday morning, scattered thunderstorms at 32 degrees. This will be the high for today with lows of 24.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So how do we fight corruption in the country? And City, you were saying it starts with the individual.
It's not how do we, how do I? How do I as a person? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's like with the denominations. You start with a cent before you get to the shilling. If you start with the shilling, you'll have missed a point somewhere along the line, and you'll think that the cent is irrelevant. And the cent is actually very relevant. It's what gives that shilling sense. Because yes, because a certain number of cents is what builds up to the point where it becomes a shilling. What do you see? I'm not actually even raising a moral question, not really. What I am raising is a personal question of understanding and identity. Meaning, as we talk generalities of we, the country, the community, the this, we always do. And when you do that, then you, the individual, your role and what you're able to do is suddenly, if I may use a term that we disappear it. Yes. It vanishes. It suddenly has no significance whatsoever. And yet it actually does. Because all these things, anything you're thinking of begins with an individual making a decision, and with that decision, they move forward. When you form a group, it's because you have a commonality.
Yep.
You resonate with that idea, but there are individuals involved in all these groups that we talk about. Corruption has to be understood in its entirety. Caller after caller has talked about the voter and how the voter should be careful about whom they elect. You know, even this person you elect is a voter. And we sometimes leave our political parties out of the equation. And why am I bringing a political party? I'm bringing the political party because most political parties and their leaders like to give the impression that they are democratic. That is really bull dust. Political parties are not democratic. They're not even intended to be democratic. They are personal vehicles that are owned by individuals. That's the truth of the matter. But if you don't want to face that truth, then you will not face any other truth beyond that.
Beyond that.
Yes. But why is it that political leaders cannot be honest and say, folks, there's nothing democratic about this thing here? We are actually going to decide who we want,
It's our decision.
It's our decision. Your participation is actually in the voting process, and even that one doesn't really count very much because at the end of the day, we will decide
decision.
and we will give whoever it is we want this position. So really, your role is just to sort of like give us the numbers so that when we go to a real election where you actually vote.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are lying to you at this stage so that we can convince you that at a larger stage when we lie to you, you're going to believe this lie is the truth. Yes.
But through and through, we've been lying to you.
No. Yes. You know, if you started there, then the conversation would be what you call an honest conversation. But if you begin with a dishonest conversation, what do you think the outcome is going to be? Do you think it's going to be an honest outcome? Or an honest outcome when you began the entire conversation with something dishonest? No.
Not possible.
Okay, so CT, now talking reality, all right?
Yes.
Because the reality is that the individual is the one who steals.
I thought that's what I was doing.
Okay, sometimes
It's too academic
it
there.
was very academic, and also you're preaching. The reality is the individual steals. The individual belongs to a family unit that has other individuals that support this person. Now you're saying that the individual starts fighting corruption by living according to certain ideals.
Actually, it boils down
How
to that.
do we now bring that? How do we make sure that we have a critical mass of individuals who are living that ideal life?
Eric, that critical mass actually exists. I'm not talking about something that should be created.
So how do we then make sure that they are visible?
It actually exists, but actually it's not their invisibility, it's their silence.
How do we make them heard?
Well,
Do they want to be heard?
actually, the issue is what is the importance of being heard? You see, when you talk about invisibility, you give the impression that you exist alone or there aren't people like you. Any grouping, from SACCO to church to cattle dip, the reason why people are in this group is because there's a certain commonality. They all have a commonality. So the groupings exist.
Yes.
And they have a certain common view about certain things.
Yes.
When it comes to our politics and our corruption, remember we've asked this question, how did we get here? Well, the question of how we got here is actually premised in a question that isn't asked. What is it that we allowed to creep into our way of thinking and then into our way of doing that allowed us to accept some of these norms which we are now calling corrupt? What did we do? And what we did was we did not think. We deluded ourselves into believing it is not so bad.
Yeah. Until it got to the point where it smacks you in the face and you don't even realize what is this thing that is right in front of you. It's not so bad, or
so
it's
how
just
do we
one or
reverse
two
that?
people.
You know, the CT is saying that there's already exists a critical mass of people who are living the life
They
the
do.
right way.
Yes, they
right?
are. They are.
People who will not bribe, a critical mass.
Yes.
People who will not bribe,
Yes.
people who will not condone corruption,
Yes.
people who will not visit you if they know that you're corrupt, people who
Yes.
will not deal with you, engage with you
Yes.
if they know that you're corrupt.
Yes.
So why is that critical mass then?
Do you know?
It's like we are eating into that mass.
The-
The numbers in that critical mass are dwindling by the day instead of increasing.
Eric, they may be dwindling, but doesn't mean they don't exist. Look, in 2002, we had an election.
Yep.
When we had that election, I personally did not believe that I would see any changes from that. I thought we would just go along as we had before, but nothing profound would happen. That's what I thought. I was to see changes that I never thought I would see. And it pointed one thing to me. Yes, there was a leadership that was determined to bring about change and found people who were able to carry out that mandate. But if the people who were being led were against it, it wouldn't have gone as smoothly as it did. That's what pointed me into the direction of what I'm saying, that actually people want good, they would like to see good, and they are inclined towards it. They're actually inclined towards the thing, if I may use the word, the thing that is considered right.
If they are led, not if they take the leadership.
You see, the leadership that I'm talking about is taking a position for yourself, not for anybody else. That one, you don't need anybody else, it's you to take it. That's really the point I'm making here. Now, what the leadership you're referring to then does, it enables you to simply live out what you already believe. what you already want, or you would already desire. It's not as though you're going out of your way.
Completely.
I have very many questions about that period, and even the period around John Mishuki and the seat belts and the pushback from the Matatu industry.
Why don't we
will talk about that. Let's hear from Brian.
Brian.
Brian
yes.
calling in from Nakuru. Brian, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Yeah. Okay. I want to just tell you a short story about me and corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In 2017-2018 election, okay, I was back at my place at the village. I'm quite influential with the youth.
Mm-hmm.
So a certain guy approached me and told me, okay, you guys, let me help you out. Let us register a CBO. That's a community-based organization, and we'll get you money, and you guys will be sorted out, and you know your people. You talk to your people.
Mm-hmm.
So I said yes, and I did my thing, and so I told you, us registering these things takes a lot of things. For you to be a CBO, you need a certificate. So I was told, don't worry, we have my people. So I just chilled, and technically there was nothing. It was just me, him, and some few guys, and the certificate was processed. We had a certificate for the group, and it was done courtesy of the MP of a certain area. I'm not mentioning names.
Mm-hmm.
The MP sorted everything until we had the certificate. So after getting the certificate, we were given first of all 50,000, let's say to boost us, to encourage us.
Mm.
So the 50,000, since they elected me to be the chairman, the guys said, okay, let's eat the money. We ate the money. The 50,000, we ate all of the money. So after a while, the guys again drew the same certificate, organized it with the MP and the CDF. We got around 300,000 to the CBO to help the CBO activities. So I was like, okay, guys, since I'm the chairman here, this money, we are not going to eat it this time. Let's do this. Let's put it some things. We were issuing sanitary towels to school kids. Those were some of the CBO's agendas and manifestos.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, let us try and purchase some of the things, and we do some things with the money. At least let us make it the activity group. There was a heated debate. Nobody agreed, and due to that short reason, we parted ways, and I left the group and I left the guys. So fast forward to this time, I'm now seeing the guy, man, he's driving a Mercedes Benz.
Wow.
I'm wondering.
You're thinking you should have stuck around.
I should have stuck around.
Wow.
Little bit. So it's quite hard to find for people who will just stand for the truth and decide to push for something that you want, because they know these guys, they are doing this with the CDF fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the MP is taking the funds. I think the last time they were given around 2 million this year to sponsor the kids to buy sanitary stuff for the school, for the constituents.
And
but
all of that money has been eaten.
Pocket. That guy now is even he married a Muzungu.
The same guy with the Mercedes Benz.
He's driving a Mercedes Benz, married, and he's a Form 3 dropout. Trust me. The main reason they got me there is they saw, okay, this guy is quite educated. At least he'll be good.
Brian, let me ask you a question. What will you say if this gentleman suddenly has his pictures in the papers? There's a section of the paper that is normally reserved for people who are either wanted by the police or who are being advertised as having done something terrible. If his picture was suddenly to appear under one of those banners, what would you then say? Would you still wish that you hadn't left the group?
I'll call the police and tell him where the guys are staying. I know he's living in a gated community. I'll go personally. But okay, I was hurt by the. Okay.
Were you hurt by the fact that you left before you could benefit,
more?
or were you hurt by what they were actually doing?
I was hurt by what they were doing, because I left because of what I stand for.
Yeah.
If I liked what they were doing, I could have stayed and hit the second 300,000. But since we parted with so the 300,000 is a lot of cash for a young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have just taken it. 20,000, 30,000 is enough money for me. MPs are bribed with 10,000.
After all, when you ate the 50, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was just three of you eating the 50.
Yes.
Brian, thank you very much for your call this morning. Thank you for pricking your own conscience.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We will be back shortly. We want to take a look at what's happening on the roads. Traffic this today, the weather in Nairobi. Hiya. Visibility is like...
zero.
Hiya. Let's hear what's happening on the roads at 9:30. We'll be back shortly. 0719-012-600 is the number you can call to join the conversation.
Yeah,
Traffic.
actually, visibility is very, very low today in Nairobi, and it's freezing cold. Well, not freezing, guys, but if we're looking at the numbers, we're looking about 13 degrees today. Okay, so Mombasa Road, Thika Road, we have some problems there. Limuru Road coming then past Village Market, very, very slow. We've had a record number 4 accidents so far around the city. So again, the plea is please be very careful. Now, if you're going towards Kijabe, that area, then outside of the city, you need to be very, very careful, because when we talk about visibility being at 0 in Nairobi, then it's at -2 or 3 outside of the city. So that's the main problem that we are facing today. Utali towards Mufaiga, very, very slow on the highway, and that's just about 10 minutes ago, trying to get into the CBD. And Mombasa Road is equally as slow. Langata Road is not so bad today, as you then get to the Timor roundabout. So in some cases, chock-a-blocked. Other cases, it's the visibility issue. So we'll take a look in later on in the day and see how that has changed. You can get in touch through the day, Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. The conversation continues, and this is in corruption. What Brian basically was saying is participated in the first round, and then he just felt guilty about this.
There's a ceiling beyond which his conscience would not allow him. Essentially, when I heard what Brian was saying, I thought to myself, Brian is definitely a Kenyan.
Why?
Well, Kenyans understand, and they even say it. It's not the problem is not really corruption, if they were to speak honestly. It's how much of
the
it,
amount,
and the amounts involved. Because every time you hear of a case, they ask, "But why didn't they just take a little bit?
Kula kidogo.
Why did they have to take so much?"
Then they were stupid to take all of it at once.
So you wonder now. So if you take a small amount, then it means that what you're doing is
you can justify that. I mean, you call it the cost of doing things.
Well,
Ed
you can
Getonga
pay
in Njeri, good morning.
Hey, morning, Eric.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Hi, Nduh. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Super.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Now, I know there's someone who's had Brian, and he has said, huyu ni mjinga namba moja.
Of course.
I can tell you that for a fact, because Brian, actually, last week we talked. Brian said that Kenyans actually plant potatoes and expect to harvest watermelons.
Yeah.
And you know, when I come to when it comes to general elections, I usually use this mantra that it's better I be part of a solution that you people don't want than being part of a problem. For example, let me give you an example. You see, people elect someone under the concept that ata akiiba ataleta kwetu. And then that someone gets into the seat because of that mind conception that you have, and once that person is elected, the Mtuetu culture dies over there, and that person gets rich, and then 2-3 years down the line, you start complaining that, oh, this guy, we elected him, he's done nothing, and he's from here, and then you pose the question, honestly speaking, what did you expect? Because accountability doesn't start with the leader. Accountability starts with you.
With the voter.
Yes, with the voter, with the person, individual himself. For example, you find someone. For example, you tell someone, okay, I would like to sell this car at this price. That person is going to go to another person and tell that person that this car is going up at this price, which is maybe 20% higher than the price that you had forementioned. And apparently, that's the system, that's the order of the day right now. And you cannot, there's no way that you cannot change. You know, we need like a nuke to just get rid of the whole political arena right now, and then we get fresh faces. Because I think the only radical positions or the only radical parts in the country are, like, for example, there is that Imenti constituency which elected an orphan, you know. There is Machakos County who elected an eloquent guy for Alfred Mutua, although I'm not campaigning for him, I'm just saying. There's you know, those little constituencies, like there's Bori in Meru, you know, they take people based on what you have to bring to the table as a leader, not what you have to bring to the community.
Not what you bring to the community.
Exactly, because now, for example, right now, I would hate mentioning names, but there is person XYZ who's been mentioned in many scandals. And that person XYZ, right, last week we saw ESCC raid her houses, and yet that person XYZ...
Don't mention any names.
No. In fact, you shouldn't mention any names.
Yes, I am not. You will wonder, people elected that person on which caliber? You know, when you go back, you are going to see that people elected him or her because of huyo mtu akifanya hivi ataleta kwetu.
Yeah.
Because I'm a neighboring county, and then that is what happened. And right now, they're the ones who are crying.
Alikuja kachukua hata ya kwenu.
Alikuja kachukua hata ya kwetu bwana.
Ed, thank you very much. Let's hear from Jimmy in Malindi. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning too.
How are you?
I'm strong, frustrated, a little bit angry, disappointed, a little bit, and hunger.
Hey.
Wow.
Yes.
Jimmy, it's good to be angry, but at some point, Jimmy, just, breathe in and breathe out.
I'm breathing in fire. I'm breathing out smoke. I'm burning in the inside.
Why is this happening,
is
Jimmy?
really
What is happening in your life today, Jimmy?
Corruption is killing me. You know where you reach a point where you feel if it went for corruption, it would be this and that. If it went for this, we would not be having these taxes that we are being taxed as a country. The effect of corruption is killing people. Do you know we're in slave trade? Do you know the normal Kenyan man has become a slave? You work. It's better a slave because a slave will work but will be given food.
Yeah.
But here, you work.
And you look for your own food.
Whatever you are getting is not enough for your food. So the slave is better than being in the position which we are currently. Okay? So, you heard about my friend there with the youth group things. I was in Lamu Youth Alliance, and something like this cropped in. And it was a tussle because I had to move out of the group. I was isolated. I was taken to be like a Kizingiti Kibaya.
Aparaya.
When the head of the Electoral and Boundary Commission comes and calls the youth in a hall and start telling them we are going to elect a new constitution, and so now The ones who took part in 2007 election, they are not supposed to be included as the people who will agents.
Yeah.
The people who will be, like taking people, showing people here and there, agents of the whole work.
Mm.
So they had called these people. Some of them were in the 2007 election. And this guy tells the people, where it is written, did you participate in 2007 election? There's a place where you're supposed to tick yes or no. He tells them, you tick no.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, because first I was frustrated with the new constitution because mimi nilikuwa.
So why was he telling them to tick no?
See, because he knows what he was doing. The constitution had to be passed. You imagine, if this constitution was not passed, Pwani will not be Kenya.
And they agreed to tick no just because somebody told them.
The head.
That's what I'm saying. It's the head or the
That
leader,
time,
essentially, who told them to tick no, and they did.
The head of the IEBC, Lamu West, he's my friend till today. I got up and told them, listen, I will not condone corruption. I cut him as he was talking. I just chopped off his tongue and stood up and said, no, you will not tell us that. You are misleading the people, and it seems you have got a certain agenda that you want to achieve, because this constitution has to be passed.
Yeah.
So there is a certain agenda you want to achieve, and you want now to have a place where if anything is found wrong, you will say, look at these people.
It is the people who did this.
This one they lied to us.
Jimmy, that's an interesting
Why
story.
are you cheating this youth?
Interesting story, Jimmy.
Hello?
Thank you very much. We want to cut you short so that we can bring in Rono. Rono is in Eldoret. Rono, good morning.
Good morning, my friend.
How are you?
And the rest of the team.
Good morning, Rono.
I'm doing fine, and I've been listening to you guys very, very keenly, and the rest of the contribution from the callers.
Right.
And I have a feeling we are skirting the main issue. The main issue is a multifaceted social construct that no one is addressing. What you are seeing as corruption are just symptoms. People are reacting to the situations as they pan out. But as a nation, as a state, we have a big, big, big challenge in the sense that we are falling victims to vested interests, right, from within and without. Take a situation like what we are having now on KEMSA. You have both the suppliers, the players in the medical industry sector, our politicians, our civil servants in the tech. You can't point a finger at one individual and say this is the cause of corruption. As you rightly pointed out earlier on, we are vilifying the senior management of KEMSA as if they are, in this case, for lack of a better word, the demons. But it is wider than that. And if we don't look at it from that perspective, we don't buy into what is happening around us, right from our politics, the geopolitics, our economy. Look at how overregulated we have we are in every sector. For you to run a Juakali business, you need I don't know how many permits.
Yeah.
That in itself tells you there is an underlying construct, if I may use that term, that is out to control you, make sure you are always checked and in need. Ideally, our legal and constitutional dispensation should allow us to work on our issues at whatever level we are in, even to the individual level.
And in your opinion, Ms. Rono, what do you think the individual responsibility is in all this?
First of all, own up. If you are on a wrong diet, if you are not doing anything for yourself, if you are electing the wrong person into office, if you are accepting mediocrity in service delivery systems, you have an incompetent village headman, school principal, the pastor, own up that we have failed at the individual level. That is the basic that is the responsibility before we start criticizing left, right, and center.
Before we raise it up.
Okay.
Rono, let me cut you short so we can hear from Jeff in Kwale. Jeff, good morning.
Okay. Morning, how is it?
Hi.
Fine, thank you, Jeff.
How is everyone?
Fine,
Everyone
thank
is
you.
fine.
I want to start from where Ron has left.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I want to bring up an interesting thing here. I want to know if either of you, if you had a kid, for example, in a good performing school or poorly performing school, and you want them to go to a good performing school, who would not take them there?
I would look for the opportunity to take them there.
Of course, and if the head teacher tells you that probably you need to see the committee so that you get in the school, what would you do?
Seeing as in going to have a look at them, or seeing as in going to talk to them with your hands in your pocket?
Of course. Of course. Sometimes you don't even need to see the committee. You just sit with if it's, for example, in early school, you just need to see the principal.
Yeah.
So I would rather we sit down and not bury our heads in the sand. This thing is not, sometimes we take corruption to be that top thing.
Yep.
I would suggest Kenya, the main solution we need probably to be the Japanese way, so that the lower cadre of the education, we first teach morals to our children. From nursery probably to class 3, there is no examination. Just teach morals to these kids. So that tomorrow, we don't teach them to scramble, but we are teaching them, before we start scrambling, first you have morals.
Yeah.
Because, let me give you a practical example. Where I come from, we have a lot of coffee.
In Kwale?
Not in Kwale. Kwale is where my family is, or where I've settled now.
Okay.
But my roots.
All right.
So you'd find a village farmer who has coffee. In the morning, people would be coming to prune coffee for you. And because probably you needed 50 people to prune for you, like my grandfather used to have, the person who has been put in charge would be told we want 50 people. But because he has probably a friend who has come late, tamwambia jioni basi utaniongezea shilingi 5 kwa kilo zako, so you wengia. It is that low. That is how low corruption is.
Yeah.
I would say corruption would be when you come and realize it's banking time is over and you want to get in and bank probably, or get in and withdraw. And so because you know the manager, you call him over and he tells you, okay, mfungulia ingie.
It's all these instances that we deal with on a daily basis.
Exactly. Everything that we do on a daily basis, we are bound to bend up to the right or to the left.
Yeah.
So I think this is a society problem, and it is up to us to raise at this point in time, because we've been called by society. We are here now. Time is calling for us, and probably history will judge us. How did we face it?
Yeah.
If we sit and say, let the president and let the rest of the leaders, elected leaders in this, then you're going to be very wrong.
Okay, true.
When I want to cross over probably to Mombasa, and there is a big queue, Pale ferry, I want to use the route ya kuzunguka kama ambaye nataka kuzunguka nirudi Kwale, and then I grease the askari pale mwisho, ama nampigia mataa na niruhusu napita. That is still corruption.
That is still corruption. Good points,
So,
Jeff.
Yes.
Good points. Thank you very much, Jeff, for your contribution.
Thank you. Bye.
We're going to take a break now at 10 minutes to 10 o'clock. But before we do that, let's remind you of this KPA portal, the information portal, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Today we are looking at the vessel handling procedures at the port. We've talked about all from before the vessel arrives at the port, the kind of information that is shared between the vessel and the management of the port.
Right. So the vessel is also, obviously in touch with what's going on, whether it's in terms of payments, in terms of slips and, the documentation that is necessary between agencies, KPA, KRA, and, your shipping agent. So we're at the point whereby your agent receives the port dues and what they call the Steve Doring bills. Okay. And so now you're able to make a direct payment deposit. Because they've received this, then now the agent will make the payment on your behalf. The cargo then is offloaded or loaded. So because we're talking about import and export, all of these procedures happen for either process. So offloading or loading onto the vessel, and the vessel then departs. Okay? Then the operations information is sent to finance for the preparation of a final port dues and Steve Doring bills. So your final bills once the vessel is ready to go. So you can imagine this is happening in rapid succession, and the shipping agent then logs onto the portal and retrieves the bills to finalize payment, and your vessel is off and away. And all of this information available on this new portal by KPA. It's called Captain Cargo. So it's captaincargo.kpa.co.ke.
9 minutes to 10 o'clock. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We've been talking about corruption from various angles today. Personal responsibility on corruption in the war against corruption is what we have discussed in this hour. And in the previous hours, we looked at the mega scandal that is unfolding surrounding the management of COVID-19. So you were talking about the personal responsibility of Kenyans, and you started by saying, you saw a very good example with the 2002 election and what 2002 election,
Yes.
and what happened soon after, and else also you raised. I brought up the issue of the Michuki rules and the introduction of the Michuki rules. You were giving another example.
I was simply giving the example of, see, what was complementary in all this is some of the things that were said by the politicians were actually done. We had systems that hadn't been functioning well for a long time. They were actually functioning. The example I like giving is the issuing of passports. It was a teeth-pulling exercise before. Tedious. You dreaded even going to renew a passport. Suddenly, it was the simplest thing. The narrative of people wanting money, that ended. Now, I found that to be a major change. And there were other changes. Things like getting an ID, again, was a teeth-pulling exercise. If you lost your ID, you're in trouble.
For years.
Yes. So all I'm saying was there was a change, and it gave hope. When you talk about Michuki rules, I've never forgotten how passengers decided, you know what, we will walk.
It's okay.
It's all right. But we're not putting up with this. That is people telling you that they themselves made a decision and said, no, we don't have to put up with this.
So at what point do the same people then get tired and start doing the same thing that they were doing before?
Fatigue. When you seem to be swimming against the tide all the time, you figure, actually, no, it is easy if I just stop swimming and just let myself be swept along. It's easier.
So it's a fatigue.
Yes. And
because for a time, you'd see that all the passengers would adhere to all these rules, get onto a matatu and check whether there's a seatbelt or not, and not board a matatu if it doesn't have a seatbelt.
Yes.
And then over time, you realize, well, people are just getting onto matatus. It's loaded, it's overloaded. You add yourself onto it.
Yes.
And you're saying this is fatigue.
Contributes to it because if you seem to be fighting against the tide, it will. But also there's the issue of influence. We've been talking about herd immunity with reference to COVID, but there's herd mentality. People seem to be doing it, so
why not?
Yes.
Plus, I think there's also the thing of people just having this natural inclination towards being shepherded. And if there's nobody to lead the pack, then you find that people are just going to go back to their old whims. And you find that there's somebody influential enough, or actually no, if you find that somebody resolute enough to make sure that you're going to push for this particular change, people are likely to drift towards that individual and do what, and they find that actually, you know what, even in this, we're all right. But then in the absence of such an individual to not do the shepherding, people are going to go back to the way in which they were doing before.
Your closing remarks with regards to seeking accountability for COVID-19.
There's a lot of work to be done, and COVID is not going to stop with COVID-19. I think COVID-19 is just, again, a magnifying glass into what is really happening and what is really going wrong. I think there's a lot of work to be done on an individual level, and then individuals then have a responsibility to push for a mind shift, for a mind change towards action. There's a lot of work to be done. Let's not think like it's just child's play.
You can just sit back and expect that it's going to happen. I'm going to call it for the same. I mean, we cannot drop our guard on this. We have to keep and sustain the pressure on all organs of government, from EACC to the executive to the legislative arms of government. We need to know what exactly has happened in the fight against COVID-19, what has been done right and what has been done wrong. And we can't just be swayed by some public euphoria about focusing on one institution. Yes, that institution may have an issue. Let's address the issue in that institution, but also let's look back at what is it that's causing that institution to have a problem. CT.
I agree with you. Am I allowed to agree with you? Okay, then I agree with you.
You do?
I do, actually.
Okay.
And I'm not going to dilute what you've said by saying, well,
to
just
add
to add on
to
to what Eric... I'm not adding. I'm not adding.
Okay, today's proverb.
A child can play with his mother's breasts, but not his father's testicles.
Somebody called Leonjofu, give some, I don't know what language that is, in the mother tongue version of this particular proverb. So since we can't read it, just continue. What does it mean?
Well, what does it mean and what does it imply? Because sayings and proverbs do both. They mean something and they imply something. The thing is, if you were to literally look at it, a mother's breast is a source of sustenance and a source of comfort. A father's testicles are a source of procreation. Now, here you are now referring to two things that are considered to be part and parcel of an important process of human life, and each are equally important. I shall continue the exposition tomorrow.
This is, you see? All right. So tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., join us again. And then tomorrow we'll also be talking about community learning, which is being rolled out by the government. We want to understand from all players, what is this program and is it really going to be a success? Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.